Hello and welcome back. This is FIDE Women's Canadian Tournament Pool B, and we are having last round today in the first game, first match. We have 4 participants, but after today's standard game, classical game, we're gonna have 2 players knocked out and 2 players living at the tournament, continuing to fight for the best places. Here we have the playing venue. We can see 3 of them already at the playing venue. Tanjangi is missing, who is playing with black pieces against Katerina Lachno, and we have 2 Alexandras, Alexandra Goryachkina and Goryachkina-Kosteniuk facing each other. We are your commentators for this event, Grandmaster Arturs Neiksans and Women Grandmaster Keti Tsatsalashvili.
Yeah, good morning or good day, depending where you are, dear viewers. And of course, Keti, again, I'm very, very happy to be back for another game. Pia's going to be with us, with you for the next 2 weeks. The first week already is the finish, and this is game 4 of the first knockout match, and it's going to be very, very important day here. We are going to talk about it a bit later. But I do believe the players here are waiting for a special first move to be made. So, Keti, who is going to make those special moves?
These names are quite known for the chess fans and the chess world nowadays, as they are the rising stars, or already stars of Uzbekistan and the Olympic winners, and also World Team silver medalists. 2 grandmasters, Grandmaster Norbert Yakuboev and Grandmaster Shamsid Vahidov. We are waiting those 2 participants. Actually, the participants of the other event, I think they are playing in the festival, which is happening alongside of the candidates tournament. And as we can see now in the playing venue, we are just going to start all the actions within several minutes.
Right, and those 2 players, Yakuboev and Vahidov, they were part of the gold medal team in this summer's World Chess Olympiad in Chennai. 2 of the Wonder Boys to get probably the best result that Uzbekistan chess has seen in the last years. Remember, they won the gold medal in a stunning fashion. They were clearly the best team, and improving the second place from 1992 World Chess Olympiad in Manila. This is a completely different generation of players, including Abdusatorov. Okay, Abdusatorov is not here. I guess he's busy elsewhere, but Yakuboev and Vahidov, they were there, and they were also part of the team that got the silver medals in the recent World Team Championships.
That is right. And so far, these guys have won almost all the team competitions this year and the last year. And also Abdusatorov himself being a world rapid champion of the previous year. This is indeed the great achievement, and also the reason why chess is booming in Uzbekistan. Let's get back into our tournament and check out what is the situation. Do we have still tie in the match? Do we have some must-win situations for those who are just joining us and have missed some of the rounds? We're gonna talk a lot about that today.
Right, so the situation is as follows. There you see the players are coming. They are going to make those ceremonial moves. Actually, it's interesting because they are playing a tournament themselves, right? So they're going to make the ceremonial move. Yeah, d4 is a good move. Well played. That's a great move. And Makina responds with knight f6.
Knight f6, okay. Let's go. It's interesting. Katya will not choose d4, I guess. And we're gonna not see these 2 moves today, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe our guest for today, who made the first ceremonial move, predicted first moves from both sides.
Right, so I guess Yakuboev said d4, this is how you should play chess. And Vakila responded, knight f6, the best move, of course, you can do in this position. Jokes aside, of course, we are going to see how it's going to happen. But talking about the ongoing games, Keti, that we mentioned, yeah, this is definitely going to be a very big day, because this is game 4, the final classical game of the first knockout phase. And the situation is as follows. Yesterday, Kosteniuk lost with the white pieces after having a really great position after the opening. She was slightly pushing. Still, she pushed d4 probably at the wrong moment. She got in trouble, and then she was mercilessly outplayed by Alexandra Goryachkina. And today, she has to strike back with the black color. And that means, Keti, probably she's going to go for something sharp. She's not going to play positional Ryan Lopez. She's not going to play Petrov. She's going to go all about business and play probably, I don't know, I mean, could be something like a Sicilian or a Sicilian Najdorf or some sort of a Benoni. I mean, she has to win on black with on demand.
That's very interesting situation. And yesterday we asked the question after they lose with white pieces for Alexandra Kosteniuk. What happens is it how she will feel with black pieces in must-win situation. And I'm gonna quote words here. In modern chess, to win with black pieces is quite an achievement. And Artur, you know whose words are those?
I suspect it is Kosteniuk herself. I remember this quote, Keti. I think she said it during the Astana Women Grand Prix. She said it's really, really difficult to win with the black color. Well, there you go, Alexandra. You have to do it here today with black against one of the strongest players in the world. Can she do this? This is really a huge cliffhanger. And now d4 is played, probably the most solid combination. Is she going to play something like a Dutch defense? How do you get the sharp game here?
Dutch defense is considered to be... There was something on F-file. What was that? No, it was G6 first move.
You might, Keti, my heart almost jumped when I felt I correctly predicted F5. No, it's G6, definitely. This is some sort of, what do you call it? Either King's Indian or a modern defense or pitch defense. So black gives up the center and tries to confuse white. And objectively, it's probably not very good, but you have to do something.
You have to do something. We're talking about the other game, but now we have on the screen Katerina Lachno-Tanjongi. Here we don't have that tense situation. Even draw can give these two players into the tie breaks where we're going to have two games in the rapid section. And anything can happen in there. Tanjongi must feel really lucky after yesterday's game as she somehow... saved the game, or Katya helped with that in the Rook endgame, where there was a big chances that Tanjongi would lose the game. However, today is a new day, a new opening, and they have started with Sicilian. And there's another G6 here, I see. Today we have two G6 on the board.
Oh, Keti, and it's Dragon. It's Sicilian Dragon. This is an opening I would have never expected here today. And definitely, this is a major surprise to Lagno because Dragon is a very sharp continuation, which has been a bit obsolete at the modern chess. And I do believe at certain levels, it is believed to be, partly correct. Right? I mean, at the club level, of course, extremely popular, but at the highest level, the Sicilian Dragon has become sort of obsolete. And that's why here, for the Chinese Grandmaster to choose the Dragon in the fourth game when the match is tied, well, this is a war declaration.
I like that. So the war is now officially open with G6 move. Why this is so interesting, Artur, for the club players? Because it's a double-edged position. Black develops this bishop on G7, fianchetto the bishop. We call it Dragon Bishop. By the way, I call that's the coolest name of the opening. Dragon Sicilian. I think that wins all over the other openings. But the main idea is that this bishop on G7 has a lot of potential on the queen side, where sometimes white castles on the long side. And then you have C3, B2 targets. White, on the other hand, starts the pawn attack on the king side with H4, H5. And we have seen a lot of very nice games from both sides. And it can be pretty much the game of the Tempest who can deliver the checkmate first. That's very often asked question here. So that's why it is so popular for the club players to play this opening. But for this match, what do you think? Why Tanjongi and her coaches or team of the seconds choose this opening? besides the fact that we know that this is already the open war, what they are going against?
I'm definitely surprised that you can see Katerina is, what? Are you playing Dragon? It's such a critical moment here. How dare you go so aggressively? Because she was probably expecting that Tan Zhongyi is going to play something positional, try to hold on to the game. And here, I think she wants to spend something like 5 minutes. And basically, there's two choices here. I mean, either she goes after the throat of the opponent, plays bishop e3, f3, queen e2, long castle, h4, h5, things you said, go after the black king, or there's also the positional play. So how do you play? How do you play in this situation? Do you go for the main continuation here and assume that your opponent has prepared really a deep idea? Because this is not something that she thought about waking up this morning. This is a preparation before the tournament. There's definitely a lot of deep ideas. And like, no, I don't think she's ready for this. Or you just play some positional chess like bishop e2, short castle. Keti, what would you do in this situation?
I would think like, oh no, I wasted so much time for preparation and she goes g6 here. That's my first reaction when my opponent goes something else that I don't expect it and I did not prepare it. But anyway, Lagna probably get over that situation rather fast, and she decides to fianchetto the bishop as well on the g2 square. With this, is she telling Tan Zhongyi that she's not going to long castle and have sharp position? Rather, she's going to short castle and have some slightly better advantage in the center because of the pawn on e4 and because of the d5 square?
Well, definitely she has chosen the positional approach. Yeah, so g3 idea is bishop g2, short castle, not long castle. This means white is not going to go for the checkmate of h4, h5. And also I think this is something to do with the match strategy, because I think that Katerina probably is a small favorite in the tiebreaks. And given the situation in the match, overall 1.5 point each, today she plays with white. Probably the strategy was like this. She's going to try to get some small advantage with white color, try to press. So, of course, finish the match here today. If that doesn't work, tomorrow starts the tiebreak of accelerated time control games. And she is several times World Blitz champion. She has been World Rapid champion. And that's why she feels probably this is a good strategy. And suddenly opponent plays g6, the very sharp dragon. She was definitely surprised, but she decided, okay, I mean, let's stay cool, right? Let's continue to follow the match strategy. I'm going to try to get this minimal advantage out of the opening. Nothing sharp, nothing dramatic. And if nothing happens, okay, we take on the action to tomorrow's tiebreaks.
Artur, remember we were talking about making draws and become a world champion. There's a way if you make all the draws in those tournaments where you can qualify to the world championship match, you can actually become a world champion. So anytime I have this situation when my opponent goes with more like equally sharpening, I'll tell myself that that's fine, because with a draw you can still achieve a lot. You can still achieve your dreams. So yeah, I agree with that strategy that Katya might feel more confident in the rapid portion and the blitz portion of the tournament, because she is really strong in that segment. We should mention also that Tan Zhongyi is one of these players who very often gets the top 3 places at the World and Rapid World Blitz and Rapid Championships as well. But it's also just a backup plan for those two, right? They will try their best in this last classical game. And if one of these has some advantage, like for instance, yesterday there was a potential for Tan Zhongyi to have an advantage after 13 moves, then Katya has the advantage in the end game. I think today they are both ready to get something very slim and then to improve that.
Yeah, definitely. So again, knight c6 very quickly responded by Tan here, challenging the knight on d4. The idea is pretty simple. I mean, probably take on d4 quite early, forcing the white queen to go to d4, and something like bishop e3 is a bit dangerous because now knight g4. White pretty much never wants to give up this dark square bishop for the knight. Something like queen d2, knight e3, queen e3. This is often regarded as strategic disaster for white because all the dark squares belong to black. So definitely bishop e3 is not going to be followed by Katerina Lagno, and I would expect bishop g2, something like this. And I think she's trying to evaluate what happens after queen bishop g4, f3 probably not very good, but something like queen d2, short castle makes sense to me, perhaps with the idea to position the dark square bishop on b2.
Very, very interesting idea, bishop g4, but I can see that our chat on Twitch is pretty disappointed not to see this very classical setup where white castles on the long side, black castles on the short side, and then we have attack on the both flanks. That's what we actually like to see. But here we have a different turns of the event. We still don't know. Maybe we will still get very sharp position even after this position. For instance, what you just showed, Artur, after bishop g2 and bishop g4, white has already to make some decisions after move 7. And yeah, we can clearly see that this is not home preparation of Lagno.
No, definitely not. G3, I think, was an inspiration over the board. But of course, all of these players, they are very well known with all the subtleties of all openings. And I think to Dragon, probably Katerina has something like 4 or 5 possible combinations. She just chose, okay, even if she knows all the very sharp combinations, let's just play something positional. But talking about Keti, talking about the reputation of Sicilian Dragon, I slightly touched it. I mean, it's considered to be slightly dubious, although probably it's perfectly fine. And at the top level, there's one grandmaster who really excels at playing this opening at the regular level. It's the English strong grandmaster, Gavin Jones. Mm-hmm. And I think he also wrote a chessable course on it, right? All the nuances. No, wait, sorry, that was Anish Giri. My mistake. No, I think that was Anish Giri. Right. Anish doesn't play, though. Gavin Jones does. And Gavin is considered the big expert here. I wonder what he would have to say. And since he is regularly playing it, I do believe he has found a lot of deep ideas, but still, compared to some of the mainstream theoretical lines like the ever-popular Najdorf, like the Taimanov, Dragon today is not very popular.
All right. That was epic, actually. The nuance who plays and who creates the course. But anyway, this is good to know how to play all kind of the openings, right? Especially for our viewers, very often they're asking streamers or they're asking commentators at this level what I should play. And usually it's quite easy. You can have some kind of guidelines from the commentators where the commentators are explaining you some of the plans, and you can obviously find something very nice up to your taste, and then you can just either find a course online or just find a coach who can help you with that. And there are so many ideas. When you're working on the opening, you can learn so many details about this. It's just not the moves that we are naming, right? G3, bishop G4. There are too many things behind that. And that's why right now, Katerina Lagno with white pieces is still considering what to play next move after knight to c6.
Yeah, I don't really know what she's going to choose. Just very quickly to mention, typically white doesn't want to take on c6 because this gives away the b5 and d5 square. Rook b8 is certainly an option for black to activate the rook. And to make things worse, after bishop g2, there is bishop a6. Right? Yeah. So you can't easily castle, and this is just not ideal. Unless you have e5 immediately. I just noticed that. I don't really know what it is. But bishop g2 has been played by Lagno.
That's right. She goes for that. I wonder now what Tanjangi will respond. Bishop d7?
Mm-hmm. Not bishop g4.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess typical idea bishop d7 at some point is to either recapture on c6 with a bishop, or sometimes you have ideas like queen c8 and bishop h3, trade this bishop on g2 and thus weaken the control of the light squares at the king side. So yeah, black is very mobile.
I just wanted to check what's the moves here, as Tanjongi played her next move very fast. This also happened yesterday. Remember, Artur, when Lahno took a lot of time thinking, and Tanjongi was also probably thinking, and then she responded Rook to D1 right away without even thinking. This is maybe a little bit different situation, as they are still in the opening stage, and Tanjongi seems to be in her home preparation. Just wanted to check, how often bishop d7 is played. At this point, most of the games I can find online is knight d4 instead of bishop d7. This is the most played. And then bishop d7 is second most played option here for black.
You know, Keti, I have a suspicion. I think I understand the idea. Again, I haven't really analyzed it deeply. I know it exists, but I think the idea is that White probably wants to play bishop e3 to secure the knight on d4. But the problem is knight g4, right? Again, I already said knight g4, knight e3, allowing black to trade the docks for bishop for white, not a good idea. So you probably want to include h3, then play bishop e3. And here you go. I think the idea here for black at some point could be, I don't know about the order of the moves, like queen c8, stopping h3 idea. And you still can't play bishop e3, and then whatever white is doing, continue with bishop g7 and drive out this knight from d4. So this might be a part of a longer plan, and it's not only bishop h3. It could be an idea to stop this h3. And if white is, let's say, stubborn and starts with, let's start with h3, then after queen c8, you can't castle anymore.
Yeah, seems like you can't castle now. If you want to castle on the long side, that's going to take bishop e2, queen d2, and long castle 3 more moves. And then the question is asked, why you played g3 then if you wanted to castle anyway on the short long side? Because with the g3, h4, h3 moves, you basically lost some tempies there, because you want to play h4, f3, g4, h5, and go forward with these pawns as fast as possible. So to change the plans and castle on the long side might be not so tempting for white anymore. Also, Artur, what's very important after this battery, bishop d7 and queen c8, black can think of bishop h3 herself, and then h5 and h4 kingside attack right away.
Absolutely. Yeah, there could be ideas like this. Maybe, again, let's start with a short castle, queen c8, whatever. Let me just make some, again, random moves. Bishop h3, white doesn't understand what's happening. h5, h4, take on g2, queen h3. These are definitely attacking ideas here. But I don't think it's going to work really so simply. But at some point, you never really know.
That's right. So this is indeed a very interesting game. Another thing that we can point out why bishop d7 still, it looks very passive. This is a very nice idea, allow with queen c8. I would probably use it one of my games against the fianchetto bishop. But there is also this bishop g4, very nice move. And there's bishop g7. And shall we show this on the board after bishop g7? There is possibility of knight to c6. No. Instead of bishop to d7.
Instead of bishop g7. Yeah. Okay, here?
Yeah, here. So take on c6, and then e5 is something that we mentioned today, this idea. So basically, the pawn on c6 is a big target, and knight on f6 is also hanging. So moves like this, bishop g7, which looks very logical and natural move, might not be so great after all.
I mean, of course, we could continue, right? I do agree that this is one of the ideas, but let's say if black accepts d takes on e5, bishop c6, even this position is not very obvious. If white has to accept this exchange, you have a lot of light square weaknesses, and short castle runs into bishop h3, queen g2 ideas. Probably it's very good for white, and after bishop c6, bishop d7, white can even choose to take on d7. So I think you're right, Keti. This bishop d7 probably was also part of a defensive resource, just in case, not to miss this idea, knight c6, e5, but probably also going for the queen c8 idea.
Yeah, let's see what Katerina Lahno will take, we can right now see perfectly well the time situation. She is down to 1 hour and 17 minutes, which means that she has spent quite a lot of time, and Tanjongi still has the starting time. Artur, let's get back to the other game. We have not checked it yet, and this is also a very interesting opening and really tense situation, as Alexander-Kosteniuk with black pieces is in must-win situation.
Oh, absolutely. So here we have a King's Indian setup. Not sure if this is the mainstream theory. Doesn't really look like it. I mean, although there's so many mainstream theories that could be one of them. Here, let's check how did this happen. D4, G6. There must be a reason why Kosteniuk decided to start with G6 and not Knight of 6. I can only guess what could be the reason. Maybe the reason is that White is still entitled to go for either some London or the Trumpovsky with Bishop F4, Bishop G5, because again, remember, White only needs a draw, right? So she could play something very solid, and G6, Black deliberately gives up the center. She has to do something. So of course, here immediately, Goryachkina took the center, Bishop G7, C4 already is not mandatory, but I do believe it makes sense to take even more control of the center. Knight C3, Knight E7, Bishop E3, Knight F6, and there you go. With a different order than moves, Black managed to get the King's Indian. And King's Indian, ladies and gentlemen, is a opening with a very fighting reputation. Black goes after the throat of White. F3, some sort of a Zamish setup. Yeah, I guess it's just a Zamish with F3. A6, yeah, not sure if A6 has to be included, but the big point is that Black has to choose between E5 and C5. Let's say even C5 could be an option. C5, D5, E6, at some point go for some Benoni structure, because again, Black needs to get a fight. A6, pretty smart, waiting out things. Rook B8, Knight E2, and now at some point, Kosteniuk simply has to make a choice. What she's going to do, C5 or E5? What do you think, Keti?
I think there's this option to play C6 and C6 and the B5. This I found myself very annoying with white pieces when my opponent does something like that. And also this Rook B8 obviously tells us that this is going to happen, B5, one day in this position. Generally, I don't like to lock up the bishop on G7 with E5. I would rather go C5 to provocate White's center and to have D5 as an answer, and then dark square bishop to be a little bit open, and then somehow to find a way to strike on the queen side with B5. That's one idea, right? But still, once again, I think C6 to play this move to keep the center open and flexible, that you can still go C5, you can still go E5, you can still go B5. I think that's that's why Alexander chose this opening to play, to be more flexible, to make decisions on the board, which direction to go.
And also here, what Kosteniuk has to keep in her mind, that Goryachkina might not play the most sharpest iteration. And for example, that's why something like C5, I mean, White is not obliged to play D5. White could play short castle and do nothing. And let's say if you continue taking on D4, Knight X on D4, the so-called Marozzi bind setup is pretty notorious, where it's White who is pressing for more and it's not Black. So that's also what here Kosteniuk has to take into her mind, that after C5, let's say if White doesn't push the pawn on D5, what is she going to do next? And maybe here after this, again, let's go back to this Knight E2, probably short castle after E5. It could be again the same. White is not going to rush with the choices to play D5. Because let's say you play D5, it could be Knight H5, F5, typical King's Indian attack. And I think that Goryachkina probably is going to try to keep things as simple as possible, while not playing, obviously, for the draw. And what you said, Keti, I like the C6. Because, you know, you try to confuse your opponent, try to get out some information. C5, E5, and hope for the best.
Yeah, that's right. I really like this Samish structure with white, what white does here, because very often black goes with the king side attack with f5, like after castle, knight e8, and then f5. And when you have your knight on f3, you have to get this knight back on d2 or e1 and then put f3 and somehow stop the king side attack. At this point, this plan on the king side to push f5 doesn't look so tempting to me anymore, because white has already very nice structure on that side of the flank. So for this reason, I am just not considering that much strong e5 move to be here. And Artur, what's really interesting with the other plane, c6 and b5, how white is going to react with that. After c6 and b5, you cannot hold the center with b3. That would be a big mistake, because after b3, you just open up this big diagonal. And at this point, now black can consider to take on c4 and push c5, because this is totally different story, as bishop gets a lot of space on the diagonal and some of the attacking points. And if white is not playing b3 and holds this center for the bishop. So there are some ideas of knight b6 moves. There's some ideas of d5, and things are getting not as usually goes in King's Indian for white.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So the c6 actually is played on the board. So black is looking for ways to trick white. A very, very good practical choice. I absolutely like it. And either way, it's quite clear that Kosteniuk is going to need some help from Goryachkina. And this is also for Goryachkina battle of nerves. You could feel it yesterday. Yeah, yesterday she was winning the endgame, and yet it took her something like 1 hour to try to win the game. Although no mistakes were made, you could feel the tension. You could feel it's very important for her. And there's probably nothing more difficult, Keti, than trying to draw when you need to draw. And this is a very, very popular topic. I think, Keti, you have been there. I've been there many times. Imagine yourself, you're arriving to a game where if you make a draw, everything works for you. How do you do it? And so many players in history have done this mistake. They start to play for the draw. And what does it mean? They play passive chess, trade, no complications, nothing. And often it ends badly. So there's this very famous saying, in order to play for the draw, what do?
You have to play for win. You have to play active.
Exactly. So
that's
you have
a
to play for
lesson that people learn really tough from the tough experience. And still, if I'm in a situation to make a draw, still there's a lot of things going on in my head, and I personally prefer to have must-win situation in the last round, because I know that there is only one result for me, and I don't have an options. Sometimes it's good not to have an options, because you're getting confused, you're getting very passive, and obviously all of us have been in a situation when you were half a point ahead or a point ahead, you just need to draw, and as you mentioned, Artur, all you did was passive moves, just passive moves. I would like to read out the comment in our Twitch chat, and that's very interesting. Some of our viewers might be this structure of the king side really different from the others. So the question is castle in short not a little scary after having played f3? That's I think, very good question.
Right.
So, would you like to answer, or I'll go?
No,
ahead?
you can answer that.
After f3, it is not scary at all to castle on the long side. It is actually just fine, because, as we said, if black starts the attack on the king side, he has to do with f5. So that's castle, knight e8, and f5. And guys, to hold the center, to stop the f-pawn going forward, you need to play f3 anyway. And with this move f3, you already did at the very beginning of the move. This is move 6 you have played. So it's not scary at all to castle on the short side. How about longside castling? This looks a little bit challenging in the current position, because if you castle on the long side, shall we get the current position?
Yeah, so this is the current position. Here, long castle?
Yeah, here long castle, something like queen d2. And this at this point, rook on b8, pawn on b5, bishop already on this big diagonal. There are at least 3 black species attacking this side. So I would say it's a bit scary here, and short castle would be something more logical.
Yeah, so a4. Again, a4 is a typical computer move, because I remember doing some analysis in kings in positions. A4 stops b5 idea. So you might think, okay, just a second. Let's just play a5, fix this as a weakness. Let's say white plays a short castle, I play e5, you play d5, I have a very good control of the dark squares, right? Well, not really so simple, ladies and gentlemen, because you might find text in some old books where it says, oh my goodness, a4 here is such a terrible move because you weaken the dark squares. But if you switch on the modern engines like Stockfish, a4 is actually all about space advantage. And even if black at some point plays e5, gets those dark squares, e5, d5, a5, it's nothing, because white is still enjoying the space advantage. And absolutely, I think that Goryachkina knows this, and sometimes having a good space advantage is more important. Anyway, I would like also to mention that FIDE Candidates Tournament for the women is one of the most important tournaments of the year. And in order to make it happen, FIDE has managed to make a very nice agreement with Establishment Labs, or Motiva. And I think it's important to mention that Establishment Labs is one of the partners of FIDE Women Candidates Tournament. It is a global medical technology company, and FIDE has made a landmark partnership agreement which is specifically aimed at supporting women chess events. And among these events is not only the Women Candidates Tournament, it's also the Women's World Team Chess Championship, it's the World Rapid and Blitz Championships among women, and FIDE Women's World Championship match. And again, Establishment Labs and its brand Motiva made it all happen.
Yeah, that's right. And this is every year the budget for these tournaments are increasing, which makes more attraction for young girls and all the female players to keep playing chess at a professional level. And this is important detail for sure, to have such a great prizes as we have at this tournament. For instance, we have 70,000 euro of the prize fund only for this one. And we have another tournament coming up, the finals of the candidate tournament, which means that the winner of the Pool A and the winner of the Pool B will face each other. And that's the only way we're going to learn who is the challenger of the current Women World Champion, Ju Wen-jun, who is a reigning champion for a long time already. And for sure, she wants to keep her crown. And this is going to be another story. But before that, we're just a step piece behind that the tournament. We have here Pool B, and then we're going to have finals. I think there's going to be organize the dates and announce the dates rather soon, I believe after the end of the Pool B. So it is probably important to know which will be the winner of the Pool B in case if we have Tan Zhongyi winning the competition, if we have two Chinese players playing against each other, I think, Artur, we might have the finals of the candidate tournament in China. Or if we have one of the ladies here out of three, two Alexandras and Katerina Lachna, then it will be very interesting. Last time, as I remember, it was in two locations. One was in China, for Juventus. She's from China. And another was in Russia, as Goryachkina was a challenger, and the other part was in Russia. So this tournament is so big by the days and the rounds that they can divide into two parts, which is also very interesting format.
Yeah, I guess dividing in two parts could be possible if they're representative from two countries.
Yeah.
If indeed we are going to have an all-Chinese candidates final, it could be possible if Tan Zhongyi manages to win the Pool B. Because to remind you, dear viewers, the Pool A, which was held earlier in Monaco in October, November, was won by Chinese grandson Lei Tingji. And the world champion is a Chinese player, Yuan Yun. This means that we could have another world champion or the same world champion, but from China. And China has been very, very strong with women's chess for many, many years. I don't know really the count, but they have at least several world champions, and even the current highest rated 5. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Even
if
the current,
more, if not more, maybe even more. So
even the current highest rated is from China. Hu Yifan is the highest rated female player. She's not part of this world championship cycle, but I mean, Chinese chess, at least among women, has great tradition.
I agree with that. So we do have here, Artur, a little bit more updates. And after e4, black castled on the short side, and white played a5 really fast right away. She stopped the potential b5 with a5. So that means that after b5, white will have a choice to en passant and to capture the pawn with a5 pawn.
I slightly don't like that Kosteniuk didn't play a5 herself here. I think a5 is aimed at controlling these squares. I know what the engine is saying in these positions, but still, sometimes you can maybe ignore that. Let's say white does something like queen c2, e5, let's say d5, that I could have some sort of control of these dark squares. Knight c5, knight e7, queen b6, although there's probably nothing. But I'm sure that Kosteniuk was looking at this. She was looking at this and she decided, okay, I'm not going to do this. And Goryachkina is pushing a5 herself to remove this option from black's perspective. And now I find that black's options are a bit limited, because if she's going to play b5, a takes on b6, there's no counterplay at the b file, and the pawn on a6 simply is a weakness. So that's why I don't like that Kosteniuk didn't include this move.
Yeah, very interesting. I think anyway, black has to push b5 here, because if you don't push b5, then you're not strong in the center. White has more space in the center, and the kingside attack is a bit delayed here. So maybe now after b5, a takes b5, queen b6 can be something that black can consider to play, as long as the white hasn't castled yet. Is there anything we can look for?
Maybe there's something like c5. Maybe this is the part of the idea. Perhaps not right away. c5, put the knight on c5, be aggressive. After d5, go for some Benoni structures, e6. But white can always try to keep the position controlled, right? And e takes, c takes is not even mandatory. At some point, white can even take for the e-pawn, keep the pawn structure as simple as possible, play simple chess. For Kosteniuk, this is going to be a very, very tough task, because, again, like I said, she needs some sort of a cooperation from Goryachkina. She knows she's entering deliberately worse position with as many pieces on the board, but she's a fighter, right? She's not gonna go down without fighting, and good news for us.
That is indeed good news for us. So we have here black again thinking, but in this game, it is more or less balanced position, balanced time on the clock. The position seems to me that white has some of the edge in the center, and that might be a little bit pleasant for Goryachkina to play this position. And also, Artur, I think one or two moves will be clear here what direction Alexandra gonna choose. Is she going to play b5 anyway? Is she going to play e5 or c5? And we're gonna see where the game gonna lead us. Shall we go back in the game of Tan Zhongyi and Katerina Lachno and see what's going on there?
Yeah, let's do this. Rook c8 is played, and also I think that it's a good idea to say hello to everybody who is watching this on YouTube and Twitch channels of FIDE. We really appreciate your insights, your questions, and if you have some interesting things to share, or you just want to find out some things, don't hesitate to ask it. Keti is watching the chat, I'm watching the chat, and from time to time we are going to try to bring it up, so don't hesitate. And I see the first question, Keti. There is a question: in case of draws after the classical format, which time format are the playoffs? I do believe it's rapid, 4 games, if I'm not terribly mistaken. Then if the match is still tied, there are blitz games.
Yeah, there's going to be a blitz after that. If that's also tie, then last time was in the pool A until the first win. So the tiebreaks is something also very excited for us and for the viewers. And guys, there is a big chance that we're going to see tiebreaks tomorrow, because according to history, this match has Katerina Lachno and Tan Zhongyi 3 draws. It is possible to have another draw here, and at least we're going to have 1 tie breaks. And if we are lucky enough, we even have 2 tie breaks tomorrow in case if Kosteniuk managed to win the game today. We don't know. We're going to know that after in few hours, and also in few minutes we can also start to speculate. At this point, there's very little that we can speculate according what we see on the board.
Yeah, but talking about Kosteniuk, this wouldn't be the first time she has beat Goryachkina with the black color, because this is the repeat of the FIDE World Cup 2021 final match of last year's, where Kosteniuk managed to beat Goryachkina with the black color and win the match, won the half point against half a point. But I still believe it's important to mention she won the game when the match was tied. Now Goryachkina has a huge advantage. She has a lead in the match and she only needs a draw, and this is something else, right? Of course, you can misplay the position with white. When you are leading the match, you're playing differently. When the score is equal, you're playing differently. So for Kosteniuk, who earlier said that winning with black at competitive chess and modern chess is quite something, well, she's going to have to prove it today herself.
That's right. That is right. And a question to our chat also from us would be where you guys are looking this commentary from, where you are from, which time zone you are. Because I think all of us in a different time zone, the players are now, they have a middle day there, it's around 4 a.m., soon to be 4 p.m. And myself, I'm still in the morning time. Artur, I think you just crossed to the afternoon time period. So it's interesting for our chat to where you guys are from. And please feel free to write in the chat that. So we're gonna know how many of us are now here at this stream to see 2 games and which is happening. And also, another thing that we were talking for a few days already, there is a side event in Uzbekistan in 3 groups, and there are about more than 200 participants, right, Artur?
Yeah, 206 to be precise. Maybe somebody already withdrew. I don't really know. In 3 groups, open tournaments.
Yeah. There are kids playing alongside of all the grandmasters and the world champions in the same playing venue, in the same hotel, not the same playing venue, but the same hotel. And also there's Group A, where there are well-known grandmasters competing for the first places.
Right, absolutely. I think I had them somewhere here on the list. So players like Noderbek Yakuboyev, who was making the first move in the of the start of this round. Also, Vitaly Bernatsky, Vitaly Sevok, some really good names, and they're here in Khiva, the ancient city of Uzbekistan, playing a very good open tournament. And like already we discussed it before, chess indeed in Uzbekistan is on the rise, because if you would check some of the younger groups in world championships, who is leading the charge among all nations, so you wouldn't be probably surprised to see it's Uzbekistan among them. So winning the World Chess Olympiad in Chennai is just the start. They're going to host the World Chess Olympiad in 2026. So chess in Uzbekistan is on the rise. And there you go. It's very logical that, of course, the Pool B of Women Candidates Tournament is held, well, in Uzbekistan.
That's right. That's right. And also, Artur, the host country can represent the Olympiad with 2 or more teams. So Uzbekistan can have 3 or 2 teams in both sections, in women's section, in open section. It matters if there's odd number of the teams registered. So this is very interesting for me to also discover in other players too. For instance, who will play in the team B, second team. It's something that right now in Uzbekistan is a big question probably. And I believe that we might have more and more stars just getting to our attention. So yeah, very much looking forward for that Olympiad indeed. And meanwhile, to the question that we asked, we have people watching from Prague. Prague is a beautiful city, beautiful European city. I love it so much. We have Yorkshire, we have USA Boston, so that's really nice. We have, I think, people from around the world. I think we also have some of the viewers in our YouTube chat. So far, we don't know they are from America. So yeah.
I even saw from Australia as well. So of course, everybody from all over the world is watching
England.
this.
That's
great,
incredible. Yeah.
Great to see that indeed. Okay, let's go back to the game and see what moves were made here after Bishop D7, Knight D to E2. This is a solid approach from Katerina Lagno. I guess she decided keeping the knight on d4 is problematic, so why don't you remove it? She did it. Short castle, again to secure the e3 square for the bishop. You need a move h3. Now that black has short castle, there's no h5, h4 ideas. Rook c8 instead of queen c8. Okay, looks normal. And knight d5. Knight d5, Keti, I believe it's been around in some positional dragon lines for a longest time. And the big idea in a nutshell, I think it's this. After knight e5, e takes on d5, of course. Knight e5. And here's the thing. White wants to get to the pawn on e7. So think about moves like c3, bishop g5, maybe knight e4, rook e1. Yeah.
f4 if necessary.
f4. Yeah, you try to apply some pressure against this pawn here, and black at the same time is trying to play b5, b4, a5, a4, etc. And that's why it's really interesting that Tan Zhangqi didn't take it. She played knight e5. She's not willing to open the e file. She is opening, however, the c file for her rook.
That's right. Artur, I have a very interesting memory with this knight d5 and this structure. As I was a kid, I was working with my coach and we were working on the weaknesses, how to define the weakness, how to create a weakness. So for me, these positions was a bit different because I was never playing this kind of structure. And for me, it was very hard to define which pawn can be a weakness here because this pawn chain for black looks very nice. I play Sicilian, and for the player who plays Sicilian and has this backward pawn on d6, forever weakness, I could not define the weakness. And obviously e7 pawn, how can you create this pawn as a weakness? And I remember that it took me forever to find this weakness. And also after we were working on it, I was still asking so many questions. Is really 7 pawn can be a weakness? Because like at this point, it's not even open file. It's not in a semi-open file. And there's only one piece attack in it. But what I remember very well, and now I realize this works better. For instance, this knight on d5 keeps the queen on d8 to guard the 7 pawn, right? And when queen cannot go away, like queen a5, queen c7, then rooks are not connected. And you obviously don't want to push e6 in this structure because this is the dragon pawn structure. Then d6 will be a huge weakness. And in the end of the day, at some point, maybe you have to take d5 knight and open e file in that where you get the pawn on e7, and what you just mentioned, this knight d4, c3, bishop g5, rook e1, is so easy moves for white to make. E7 is something that black has to really deal with. It's not so easy to guard this weakness.
No, it's definitely not. So after knight e5, I think that Tanjiki definitely is going to take on d5. But the question is when. And also for white, she needs first to take a move. Because let's say she continues in the same fashion of something like c3. There's no pressure against the pawn, and black can take on d5 at any given moment. And actually, you know, Keti, I'm looking at this bishop g5 idea that I am pressing the knight on f6. I want to ruin black's pawn structure. I want to force black to take it here. I noticed, probably it's not going to work. I noticed this odd idea, bishop h3, right? So after bishop h3,
nice.
there would be a fork.
Nice.
But it doesn't work. It doesn't work, unfortunately, I think, because I take it, and take on e7. But something like this in some lines could be an option for black, and the position is rather unusual. There could be some tactical shots. So bishop g5 makes sense from Katerina's perspective. c3 makes sense as well. I'm not sure about this knight. I mean, this knight could go probably to d4, or I'm thinking maybe knight f6, bishop f6, reposition another knight on d5.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You can never get rid of the knight on d5. Artur, I was thinking about knight e5, what black really wants to do after this move, and maybe she wants to play knight c4 to somehow target the b2 pawn. With that, then dark square bishop is stuck on c1. You cannot develop this bishop anymore as the pawn on b2 is hanging. And if you play b3, once again, you are going to wake up this dragon bishop on g7, and you have such a big challenge to control yourself this diagonal, and you have to play bishop to b2, c4 right away. So with an accurate calculation, maybe black can play knight c4 or bishop b5, for instance, to control this long diagonal also from that side.
Well, that's why I believe that white plays c3 at some point, try to limit the bishop on g7. Again, it's all about order the moves. I mean, not sure if you can do c3 right away, right? c3, try to limit this bishop, which is still not open because there could be bishop b5 ideas, right? There could be some problems with these squares. And then black is going to take on d5 at some point. I like this for black, to be honest. I'm pretty sure that engines are saying in this position that it's somehow better for white, but black is doing all right. She's carrying out some typical plans. And I think that, for example, this position, which I just started to show, Keti, after knight c3, wherever you position the bishop, let's say, whatever, on e6, knight e5 takes. One of the big ideas here that at least black is aiming for, she would love to trade the bishops. For example, bishop h6, I'm sorry, black is the move. How do I, let's make some move here. Bishop h6, bishop g7, takes. And black's idea is in the long term, rely on the power of the bishop. And it kind of rings a bell, right, Keti? Because yesterday's game of Kosteniuk with the white color against Goryachkina, it was exactly the same theme. The bad bishop against the good knight who can control a lot of dark squares. And very often in these positions, this is one of the core ideas for black.
Yeah, guys, that was quite a painful game for Alexandra. Kosteniuk, if you missed the commentary yesterday, you can see all the live videos, which is recorded on FIDE YouTube channel, guys, and you can take a look at the commentary, or you can check out the game. Just make sure that you see that game, because it's a good example how you can outplay your opponent when your opponent has a bad bishop. And Artur mentioned that this is a game that he's going to show to his students, as it was really a nice example. Artur, we have a question in the chat. Blunder in Goryachkina's game? Is that really? Shall we just go there and check it out?
Yeah, of course. Let's go over there. No, there's no blunder. I mean, maybe you saw the engine slightly changing the valuation of the position. Yeah, but this is not great. I mean, again, I do believe that she had to start with a5 earlier, which was here. So I have a feeling this a5 was necessary move. But okay, I mean, of course, Kosteniuk is in a very tough situation. She has to desperately try to play for the win. She did play b5. All right. Queen b6. Knight a4, pushing away the queen. Short castle. e5. Of course, here Kosteniuk is trying to gain some better control of the dark squares. Simply plays d5, and white's position is so solid, so sound that I don't know, probably c5, knight h5, f5 is the only chance that Kosteniuk has in this position.
Interesting.
I would say c5. You have to close it. You have to close the position with c5, right? Otherwise, you definitely don't want to open the position. C takes, opens this bishop, opens the pawn on a6, opens the c file. Not gonna happen. If black is not gonna do this after d5, let's say black does again some random move, bishop b7. White could simply take on c6, create a weakness, create an outpost on d5. So I don't really see any other option here for Kosteniuk. Just close the position with c5 and hope for the best on the king side.
That's interesting. Our broadcasting team suggests now to take a look at the interview with Goryachkina, which was recorded yesterday after the game. So we definitely want to see her emotions. And also, guys, we're going to see the highlight of the third round. Let's take a look at that.
Alexandra, congratulations. This is first win of the whole tournament of the Pool B of women's candidates and with the black pieces. So how do you feel now?
Да, ну в целом сегодня, несмотря на то, что я как-то неудачно, неуверенно, можно так сказать, вышла из дебюта, в дальнейшем как бы пошла игра, и соперница, мне кажется, не очень хорошо разобралась. И мне удалось как-то одержать победу, учитывая, что как бы в предыдущих двух партиях у меня был легкий недобор.
What do you think were the critical moments today, and when did you understand that you have a real winning chance?
Сложно сказать, потому что позиция такая, что кто лучше, крепче ходит, понимает, тот и выигрывает. И я как-то покрепче, поувереннее ходила. И, сложно сказать, лень думать.
Okay, and your win comes after the free day yesterday. Do you think you have managed to get some rest, that it made a difference and helped you to win today?
Да, как я уже сказала, у меня по первым двум партиям были шансы, и в целом мне нужно было просто чуть-чуть успокоиться и продолжать играть на том же уровне, и будет очевидно, что шансы будут, и так и получилось.
Okay, congratulations again. Thank you for your time and good luck tomorrow.
Well, that was interesting interview, and Artur, as Goryachkina mentioned, that now she is more confident. It takes just one game to boost your confidence in the whole tournament. And earlier in the other interview, Goryachkina mentioned that she was just warming up and she had some of the opportunities that has been missed. But yesterday, she did not miss any of the opportunity and she beautifully played the end game. Do you think that it took her 2 games to get back in her shape and also to get her confidence back and her staring look back?
Right, and she's got everything under control here.
Yeah.
Here, instead of c5, Kosteniuk decided not to fix things yet at the queen side. She did play knight h5, which is a very typical maneuver at the king's Indian, which involves pushing f5, and queen c2. Here, Goryachkina is very cool. She controls things and she's slowing down f5. And that's the problem for Kosteniuk, because let's say, even if she closes the action at a queen side, c5, king h1, let me remove the knight, whatever, knight b6, rook b6, let me make just some random move. The big problem is that even f5 doesn't guarantee success, because white could at some point snatch on f5, meet it with f4, or perhaps play f4 immediately, which could lead to mass simplifications. So even by the first look at the position, I have a feeling that white's position is simply better, right? And that's why here for Kosteniuk it's so difficult. But again, ladies and gentlemen, she's trying everything she can, but her situation in the match is so difficult, she has to strike back with the black color on demand. Her opponent is one of the strongest players in the world, and with black color, it's just extremely difficult. What can I say?
It is. And also, Artur, here, Goryachkina just played queen to c2, which is very decent move. You develop your queen, you are going to connect your rooks. c2 square is indeed the very nice square for the queen as it guards the pawn on b2, and also it looks for f5 square. On this diagonal, so black sided to be pushed f5 right now is stopped. But then I ask myself the question why she didn't took the pawn on c6, because this for sure creates the weakness on d5. Shall we take a look at that line if she could play d takes c6 instead of queen to c2? Right?
Yeah, let's check this.
Queen c6. Now to go for d5 square with probably
the question is
e2
which
knight. Yeah.
I would love to actually position this knight, but the thing is, the knight on a4 is not doing anything, but the pawn on b2 suddenly becomes vulnerable. Maybe it's the knight. Okay, and if I play knight f4, I guess you play
Knight d5 here.
I blundered. Double idea. Okay.
Ooh, knight e7 is something that
I blundered. I mean, my point here was I wanted to put the knight on e6. Knight e6, knight e5, knight e4. And one of the things that effectively changes in this position is that black can fight for this d4 square. For example, again, let me show you some ideal scenario. After knight c3, knight f4, white does nothing. Knight e6, white does nothing. Let's say you play knight c5. Here, knight e4, and take. Well, it's already pretty obvious that black has managed to take over the game because she controls very important dark squares. Think about bishop e5, bishop h6, bishop e6 has a very solid position, but of course this is not gonna happen because white is not gonna sit there and watch doing nothing. But right. I do agree, d takes on c6 was an option.
And also, Artur, what really I like there in that position is like after taking on c6, queen takes, knight to c3, knight f4, knight d5. Now we need this knight d7, and for instance, if queen goes back on b7 or rook comes on e8, now white can be very pushy and go queen d2 to attack the knight. We want to win this pawn here or just capture it. And my point is like even at this point, if you take the knight on d5, then I will take with the c pawn, and I have a beautiful outpost on c6. I don't know, I will take it with the rook, I will take it with the knight, which is a bit challenging for the moment, but I have an outpost. I have the open file, and white is the one who is going to attack. And there's also a6 pawn, which is something that for sure I'm going to target alongside with the d6. You just
so a6 and d6 pawns, they definitely can make very fine targets. And when you look at the pawn structure for white, every single pawn is supporting each other, which cannot be said about the pawn on d6. So we can argue maybe these pawns are more or less equally weak, but the pawn on d6 is simply not having enough support. So that's why here I don't think Kosteniuk is going to do this. So I was thinking here, Keti, after this entire sequence of knight h5, takes, knight c3, knight f4, knight e5, black could, of course, sacrifice the pawn and play something like rook e8, right? Take on f4, bishop f4, knight e5, but I don't think she has more chances than just getting some sort of a compensation, not even talking about an advantage.
Although I don't think white will just trade knight from d5 to f4 for that pawn. Maybe white could just play something like b4, queen d2, rook to c1, c5, and that kind of ideas.
Yeah, but then I get the knight on e6, right?
But the point here, Artur, is that if Goryachkina was in must-win situation, she would go for some kind of changes of the structure, but she's not. And look at this, how she's playing for a draw here, like more solid position. Queen to c2, she's not changing any structure. Let Kosteniuk change the structure. Otherwise, if you don't change, I'm better. Why should I change the structure, right? So I like this game that Goryachkina is playing. So I will not change anything.
I think she simply is trying not to give any chances for Kosteniuk. Even if this d takes on c6, knight c3, knight e5 is good, why give chances? Why give chances for black to activate the pieces? Why give chances for black to fight for the dark squares? She's going to try to play as solid as she can, right? So there's nothing wrong what Goryachkina is doing here. She's keeping things under control. I'm sure the engines are evaluating this position much better for white because of the space advantage and because of the weakness on a6. White is controlling things.
That is right. So white has here indeed very nice advantage here in the center with the pawns and very active pieces too. The question is Alexandra going to play on the king side somehow with f5? Is she going to close this king side first with c5? So a lot of questions here for us to have. And meanwhile, we have very interesting move in the Katerina Lachnau-Tanjongi game. Shall we get back really quickly in that and check it out?
Right. Let's do that. We left it. Where was this? Knight e5, knight e5, a4. A4 is probably a necessary move because it takes care of the b5 square. And I have a feeling, Keti, that is a4 is preparation move to counter a bishop b5 and prepare to play c3 next. Because if I play c3 and knight e4, what do you do after bishop b5? Kind of problematic. Rook e1, otherwise you have a pin. Yeah, knight e3, you have to go back. So that's why this a4 is just a very typical move. You take away this square, c3, knight e4. I think I understand what Lachnau is trying to do here. And then at some point play bishop g5, try to force things for black to take on d6. We can try to shuffle a bit the pieces and try to predict how the game could continue.
Yeah, that's right. A5 is indeed a very interesting approach. Knight e5 is one thing, e6 another thing. Are there in this position bishop to c6, or that's not really creating anything?
Maybe you want to take with the bishop. Actually, that's a very good point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you want to keep this bishop or not. Maybe bishop c6, bishop d5, relying on the knights. It's an idea. Let's check first knight e5, and then check let's bishop c6, and try to understand what's the difference here. Okay, let's say I take it, and play some sort of a move like
bishop f5, hitting on
bishop
c2.
f5, and knight e4.
Knight e4.
I defend the pawn, I attack the bishop. I could push it back with g4 at some point, so queen d7, g4 would be really careless. So you can't do that. You have to go back, right? Not really a great perspective for the bishop. And knight f5 could be a problem at some point.
Right.
Okay. If not bishop f5, what else?
Now it makes me feel like, how about rook to c4? So we are stopping knight d4 happening, because we're going to capture that knight on d4 and then play knight f3 to win a queen.
Nice tactics.
And it's a sneaky move, because after rook c4, if we play c3 with idea to play knight to d4, shall we do here some
Also, the rook c4 attacks the pawn, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
There's the minor little thing,
see,
right?
I wanted to mention that, but the c3 pawn cards a4.
Right.
Maybe queen e8, I don't know.
Queen c8 or e8.
Queen c8 possible, queen... Yeah, maybe queen e8 first and then queen c8. Some details like that.
And if, now this pawn is under attack, and let's say I play b3, I push away your rook.
Yeah, rook c5 now. I'm stopping knight
rook
d4.
c5. Okay. Rook c5.
Rook c5.
But it wins tempos, no? With bishop e3.
Yeah, maybe even the pawn on a7, because that pawn really hangs.
Okay, let's play rook c8 back. Now knight e4 is not an option, because this pawn on c3 is under attack. Oh, wait, you just dropped the knight. Whoops. Yeah, that was
I thought I was smart doing all these rook moves to provocate.
I want to say I saw this, of course, from afar. I did not. So you have to be a bit careful about this trade on d5 and the bishop. I'm not saying that it's bad, but sometimes this knight could be under attack if you are allowed to play f3, b4. So the bishop on d7 is not really having a great square. And here's the thing. Black can't really activate the pieces with something like e5 or e6 at some point, because white always will gladly take on e6, establishing weaknesses on d6 and b7. What if, Keti, what if we play bishop c6 and try to trade with the bishop?
Yeah, let's do that knight d4 perhaps here.
Okay, knight e4, I'm going to take it and take it. My idea is to rely on the power of two bishops. c3, rook e1, queen e2, bishop g5, f4 maybe. Okay, maybe not f4, I don't really know. But rely on the space advantage of two bishops. And maybe the problem here is that black could have issues with an active play. The pawn on a4 is no longer under attack.
That's right. Like, it seems to me that white's play is bad. It's like easier white here with this space, with the active pieces. Chad has a nice idea here that they are suggesting. Instead of knight to d5, how about queen to e8 to hit the pawn on a4? So here white has several moves, right? b3 to guard this, a5. But a5 allows us... Yeah, this is the first option, and the rook is hanging.
Okay.
And e5 allows us to get this bishop b5 move that we wanted to play.
Yeah, I don't think... although maybe a5 could be a possibility, because now this pawn on a7 is sort of under attack, because bishop b5 gives you bishop e3 ideas. Although there is knight c4 ideas. And that's why it's so strategically interesting, because both players have their chances, right? And they're going after weaknesses on b2, white is going after the weakness on a7. This could be a mess, and it doesn't really look peaceful at the moment, despite the fact they played out a rather slow pace. Sicilian Dragon, the player who is going to understand it best is going to win it.
I agree with that. I agree really with that.
So queen e8, I like that.
Queen e8 idea to attack the pawn on a4.
What if I play knight... Yeah, but do I want to play knight c3? That's an open question, right? I thought knight e4 is the square I want to position the knight, not on c3. Or maybe knight c3 is just fine. Let's say knight d5, I could take perhaps.
I was considering to play knight c4, Artur, in this position. So the point is that if you take on f6 and if you play knight d5, then b2 pawn is something that I would consider to take.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For example, takes, queen d4. I guess black is just fine. Knight c4, queen a7, bishop c6. Black looks all right. You know, one of the things, Keti, here in these positions, white needs to be a bit careful. She needs to be a bit careful about this bishop on g2, and it may seem a very solid bishop, but we already showed some examples before where this last square bishop easily can become the worst piece on the board, essentially if it's against the knight. So it's really, really tricky, and white is going to have to carefully navigate properly. And look at the clock. I mean, she's down on 48 minutes. Katerina Lagno has spent so much time in the opening, 48 minutes, half an hour difference on the clock.
That's true. That's true. Wow, this is something unexpected. And if you remember yesterday's game as well, it was Tan Zhongyi who was present in the opening, and then some chances was missed with one inaccuracy move, and then other accuracy move. I think we counted 3 inaccuracy, a little bit. And then Rook to C7. There was also the game. You guys have to check it out in the endgame. Who would imagine that the Rook on the 7th rank would be trapped? But it was. And you guys can check it out. Another question, kind of answering the questions after A4, to respond with the A5. I am a bit dubious with that move here, to be honest, because you give up the b6 square. So if I play at some point bishop e3 and bishop b6, I'm getting a lot with that. However, after bishop e3, I just realized that there's knight c4 and I'm guarding b6 square perfectly well, and I want to take the dark square bishop, and b2 pawn is also hanging.
Well, I don't know about a5. It definitely has good logic. I agree the point is stopping the a pawn, but it's a very responsible move. You of course blocked the pawn, but did white really play a4 to play a5? Or did white play a4 to stop bishop b5? And dear viewers, in case you want to improve your chess, I suggest to do one thing. Really pay close attention on the true idea, try to understand the true idea behind the opponent's move, and don't fall into this trap. If my opponent plays a4, I have to respond automatically with a5, right? It's very important to diagnose what is the real idea, and I do believe that real idea is to stop this bishop b5, and a5 idea in some Najdorf lines in the Sicilian, sometimes it's exactly the move that you want to play, but there's one problem with this move: the pawns don't go back, right? And as soon as you commit to this weakness, the weakness on b6, Keti has already described, potential weakness on b5, you might regret. I'm not sure if I would play this move. Although it looks very interesting. It looks extremely interesting, of course. I see the ideas, of course. There was a mention in the chat, bishop c6. There was a mention, queen e8, blocking this pawn.
There's also b5, yeah.
Oh, b5, okay.
There's a very interesting idea here the engine suggests. So let's see that. And this is the way how black can complicate the position a little bit. So after a4 instead of a5, to take the knight on d5 first, and now queen to c7. So basically you attack the pawn on c2. So if you play c3 here, then at this point black can play b5. And why queen c7? Because a7 pawn now is guarded by the queen. And if you take on b5, then bishop gets on b5. And this is very nice position. Light squares are weakened, knight d3, knight c4, bishop c4, these kind of ideas. And if you play, for instance, bishop e3 now to attack the pawn on a7 can be a6, can be a5, a4 just to dominate on the queen side fully. And instead of taking on b5, there's also this opportunity to play f4 for white, which engine suggests. However, after this f4, there's queen b6 check. He goes on h2, and now knight to c4. And this is really complicated position to me.
Absolutely, but I'm also not sure if white really has to play c3 here. Here after queen c7, what if we play knight e4? Maybe it's exactly the same, because I have a feeling that you can't really live without c3, but knight e4 stops b5 idea. Maybe this is a bit more important to start with. What happens after knight e4? Really tricky.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Here's engine suggests queen to c5, probably with some ideas queen d4 and knight f3. I don't know if that's possible.
It makes sense. Yeah, because bishop e3 probably still knight c4. I agree. And if I play c3 now, where's your play? I don't know. I mean, maybe black has to think about this idea of b5 earlier. Is there a chance to play
Oh,
b5?
it's interesting. It's interesting, Artur. After c3 there.
Yeah, I lost it just a second. Let me try to find it. Yep.
But this is the engine lines. I don't know, and it's also the line you want to complicate. And Tanjanki is not in must-win situation. But now engine suggests queen to a5, and the idea of this move might be b5, and you want to take on a4, and rook on a1 is pinned. Strange stuff.
No, actually, that makes sense. That does make sense. I think it's a bit difficult to pick up for a human being. I mean, you first play queen c5, then you play queen a5, right? And why not play queen a5 right away here? Why not play queen a5 right away with the idea to play rook c4? It definitely looks very, very logical. And Tanjanki could pick it up. But it's difficult. It's difficult to figure out, for example, you have to put the queen on c5, the queen on a5. All of the moves here look the same. a5 looks interesting. b5 at some point looked interesting.
Queen e8 is interesting.
Queen e8 is interesting. Bishop c6, bishop d5 is interesting. Knight e5, bishop f5 looks dubious, but maybe to somebody it looks interesting. So you have to like navigate yourself in a lot of the ideas. And I think, Keti, the most important thing here is that you have a feeling of the position, and I don't know if Tanjanki has a feeling of this position.
If she has played before, like if you play this opening and if you have some experience, you can figure it out, all these engine lines too, because obviously nowadays all the chess players are working with the engines. And like if you once see this idea to provocate pieces with the queen and then play for the weakness on a4, you can go for it. But the question is, have she played this before? Is it a preparation for this match? Because if we ask the question, if we know the answers, then we can figure it out what kind of direction Tanjanki can go.
It really reminds me, Keti, when I'm myself also a professional player, and it reminds me when I tried to switch to the Rai Lopez with black color. I was always a Sicilian player, tried to switch to Rai Lopez. I was playing the first games with black. I got excellent positions, but I lost quite a few games. And the reason is this: I didn't feel the nuances. You know, you have to get a feeling, you have to understand which piece goes where. It's not only all about theory, it's also about understanding the soul of the position. And that's why, for example, you can prepare an entire concept and fight it in one game, but you sidestep left and right, you just don't understand this position so good. And that's why it's sometimes a bit dangerous to play a new line at the highest level which you haven't practiced. But I'm not saying this is the case here, right? I'm sure that Tanjanki has played a lot of practice games before. She had a lot of time to prepare for this tournament, and of course the Dragon is not what she prepared overnight.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. You can go with some kind of setups and the structures which is easy to play, but Dragon is a very complex opening with a lot of ideas. If you don't know those ideas, then you can find yourself into problems. E6 is another way to continue this game, which is quite committal, and you are changing the pawn structure now. So obviously the follow-up is something very interesting. Otherwise, you just create a weakness on d6 pawn. So definitely Tanjanki is not going to keep this weakness on the board. She very likely wants to push this pawn forward if she has a chance and get rid of the weakness.
Actually, e6 is a normal move, but of course it weakens the d6 square. So I guess that Tanjanki is going for aggressive approach, which is not a big surprise because she did play the Dragon. And now the question is, what happens here? Let's assume, of course, there's no guarantee that white has to do this. Take, and queen d6, even if the pawn on c2 is not under attack, I guess black is incredibly active. Even something like rook d8 could be played with a lot of discovered checks. There's knight f3, rook c2, there's bishop a4, bishop b5,
bishop c6, bishop b5. Oof.
There's a lot of ideas. So I don't think that white is going to take it. And there's the knight f3 check idea at some point. There's the knight c4 idea. There's the bishop c6 idea. So I wonder what is going to happen after something like knight d4. So white wants to establish some sort of a control over the center, but this could run into some tricks.
I honestly like here something like knight to c. Oof,
No?
I like that more.
I don't know. I just made it up.
He just dropped it.
I just dropped it. It's not my game. I can suggest it. So knight e3. I was trying to figure out if this is a way how the game can get really peaceful. Probably. Although black is slightly suffering because of this pawn. Okay, maybe not knight e3.
You can play bishop f6, bishop e7.
Yeah, but
Welcome
you're
back
slightly
to
worse,
Sicilian.
right? Kind of worse. I don't know. Maybe not by great margin. So what you said, knight c4?
Yeah, that's it
That
for
makes sense. I play c3. I protect the knight. And it's quite peaceful. Rook d8. Some sort of a queen e2. Some sort of a bishop e8. I don't know.
Yeah.
b3, bishop b2 maybe. This knight is pretty good. I have a feeling it's about balance. The white doesn't have anything real. So it's an interesting choice by the Chinese Grandmaster. I like it.
Yeah, that's true. And what happens if knight gets back on, let's say, e3? So I'm gonna leave this square on c3 for another knight to regroup, maybe. Also control c4 square.
It looks a bit odd, no? What about
It
bishop
looks, yeah.
c6?
And now f4. I'm a greedy person.
Very greedy. Okay, knight e7, queen d6 is knight e4.
No.
No?
I prepared trickier for you.
Okay.
This knight d5 move. Is that working?
Oh. But I'm afraid to disappoint you. You come with no threats.
Ah!
It's a fashion.
There's no
fashionable
threat.
move.
It's just a beautifully standing knight. Standing knight.
I mean, I could take it and take on a4. And I have sort of good pieces. I don't know. Maybe it looks nice. But I have a feeling that this knight on e3 is a bit odd. I do get the point. 95. Huh.
Yeah, this 95 is something for our viewers to see, this kind of typical ideas. But also, Artur, in that position, maybe knight c3?
Yeah, let's go back.
Yeah, knight
where was
c3
this?
maybe, after bishop c6.
And now f4. Or maybe we try not to play f4 at all. Because it does weaken the king.
It does. I actually wanted to suggest this move, like knight e3 and knight c3 from e2.
Okay.
So
Here?
e6, knight e3, bishop c6, and now knight to c3. We guard the pawn on e4, and now f4 is a threat to win the pawn on d6. So definitely
Okay.
you have to play something like queen e7, and as the queen is already e7, then knight d5 will create something.
You really want to make this 95, yeah?
I
Okay.
know a few ideas only.
No. I mean, 95 is a very nice idea. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe 95 at some point is going to work. This is definitely a choice. You know, one thing, the viewers, what I understand from the trade is that usually there's the rule. The side which has the space advantage tries not to trade pieces. And why is this? Because the other player is feeling slightly cramped and he's simply missing the oxygen for his pieces. So we could argue if black is here missing the oxygen, if black is feeling suffocated, and if this is the case, it makes sense for white not to trade pieces, because most of black's pieces, they're positioned on the final two ranks of the board. So keeping that into our mind, it really makes sense to play knight e3, knight c3, squeeze. You know, this could be a potential position of squeezing. But then again, I see the knight on e5 and the knight on f6. I'm not really sure if this is a typical space advantage position.
Yeah, that's right. Interesting. And Artur, what happens, for instance, after knight to c3? We attack the pawn on d6. And now at this point, if black plays bishop to c6 to guard this d6 pawn, how about we go something like f4 anyway?
I'm not even sure if black has to do so passively. Okay, let's say f4. She goes to c3, exactly.
She goes
So
to c3.
I think the reason is that she feels there might be some space advantage, and that's why she retreated back to c3. Okay, 4, and you want to win the pawn. And if I give a check,
Yeah, king
play
for
knight
h2.
c4. Oh, sorry, not there. Yeah, on e3. Sorry. I could sacrifice this pawn.
Yeah, I was thinking of queen d3 move here. So b2 pawn is not hanging, right? Because I'm going to trap the queen. If you take and rook to b1.
Nice. Okay, that's interesting. And if that's not possibility, I mean, I could sacrifice the pawn on d5, and this is what I wanted to bring up at some point. I mean, I feel there could be a sacrifice of d5. So takes, whatever takes, let's say, take it, take many times. This is not necessarily great for white.
Yeah.
Just look at the domination of black's pieces, right? The king's exposed. But I was even looking at this idea here. After e6, knight c3, I was even here looking at d5. And I tried to figure out, is this a possibility? Because let's say we take it, of course, I think once white is definitely going to take, white is not obliged to take the second time, but let's check it for the sake of the argument. Take it. Now, bishop d5 drops the pawn on h3, right? Oh, wait, it's actually pretty simple because now I have rook c2 idea as well. And I have bishop e6 idea, dynamic ideas like, I mean, probably just rook c2 is good enough, but let's say even this is looking incredibly good for black, right? So there's a lot of activity here and white is sort of passive, no?
Okay, that's interesting. So black can consider to play d5 right away.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying this has to be done, but maybe let's say takes. White could regret, you know, including this a4. That's why this d5 could be a very nice way to try to punish white for the sort of waste of the time. What about something like bishop g5 here? You know, try to improve on the threat. And I could sacrifice this pawn. You know, I could play even h6. I know these typical ideas from some of the Sicilian count positions. Take, knight e5. Some sort of whatever. I don't know where you position the, maybe even go back. Maybe queen d6, knight c4, rook d8, bishop e6. Very rich position. I can easily see black playing d5. And maybe actually this was part of Tanjanki's idea. Why she played e6? Maybe she is aiming for d5, and I think she's not going to play passive.
That's my first impression. If you play like e6 and you create such a weakness in Dragon, you definitely are not going to play next move like queen e7, rook to d8 to guard this weakness. You want to push the pawn forward and just conquer this center because it seems like this a4 move was, useful, but also it was the side of the defense, and it's not in the center. It's not something that has any influence in the center. So d5 is definitely the idea. It can be also after bishop c6 and d5. One thing, queen e7, rook d8, rook bishop e8, also a possibility then to play d5, but it takes at least like 3 moves. And if it works right away, which we just show on the board d5, why not to go for it?
Yeah, and I think in Tanjanki's mind, you can see she's in a very deep thought here. She's trying to understand, should I think this is what she's thinking. I don't know. I'm not an extrasense. I don't know what she's thinking, but I suspect she's thinking about, should I push d5? Should I prepare this? Should I play first moves like bishop c6, then d5? Should I maybe not rush with this? But I have a feeling that d5 with inclusion of a4 makes sense. And the modern chess reviewers, it has developed immensely, and sacrificing a pawn has become a standard of many openings, right? The pawns don't matter. And I think it makes sense, right? It cannot be like a single pawn is dominating your decision making, and with the help of developing of the modern chess engines, the understanding has increased dramatically. So it's very often the idea to sacrifice the pawn to get a lot of space, a lot of activity for your pieces. For the best place in the world, for chess professionals, this is an easy choice. That being said, maybe there's something wrong with d5. Maybe it's not working right away, but I'm sure that Tanjanki is looking at this.
Yeah, she can do it. And Simon in the chat says, like, it's not obliged to take on d5 and leave this pawn here. That's actually what we mentioned earlier, that after d5, there's one option to accept the sacrifice, or you can play also with bishop to g5 next move, as Artur was pointing out that, and to have the isolated pawn, to have some of the pins with the bishop g5 now, for instance, create knight d5 threat. And that's quite complicated position. We can see that Tanjongi is not going to that direction. And instead of this, we wanted to see some of the center attack, sacrifices the pawn in the center and so on. But Tanjongi says, like, no. Let me play first queen to c7. In fact, this move makes a lot of sense to me, because you're looking for city pawn and you kind of pin the knight on c3. So probably she just wants to play rook to d8 next move.
It doesn't mean she's discarding the d5 idea. I think she's still toying with this idea. Maybe queen c7 is actually a bit smarter, because she's looking at this position and trying to figure out what is the useful move for white, because maybe I'm going to play d5 anyway. And queen c7 is like the ball is on your court side. I mean, what are you going to do? And maybe the point is, for example, if white plays f4, which is a very normal move, you play knight c4, white plays whatever, let's say king h2, and this d5 could be even stronger, because white has weakened the king side. White has opened some dark square weaknesses, and this pretty much already is asking for white to play e5. I think it's extremely dangerous to accept this pawn with such a weak king on h2. But also, like you said, Keti, this could be also the idea to involve rook d8 with the idea of d5 or rook d8 d5. I think the d5 idea definitely is there.
Yeah, I agree. However, this queen to c7 is... how about knight to b5 here? This is the move white can consider, or knight e2 to d4 first, and then knight b5 ideas.
Now b5, you drop the pawn on c2, no? I mean, this is you're asking.
Do you think
for...
I just dropped the pawn on c2 just like that?
I think so. I mean, I see. Of course,
I have very evil ideas.
No, it's a nice idea, but the problem child on c2 is still there.
Point here is, like, it depends. You're taking right away, or you take first the knight on b5 and then you take. So after queen to c2, there is this idea, which is very interesting to consider, of course, to take on c2 and then to play knight c3 to drop the rook on c2, inspired from yesterday's game with knight d4 ideas, but seems like it's knight b4, b5 to c3.
Oh, what? Which
but doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I think it's not.
I don't think you can catch it. Which knight to d4?
Hold on, give me a second.
Because I think knight e3 is incoming. I get the point, right? But I don't think in such an open position white will be able to catch the rook on c2, because in the worst case you could just sacrifice the exchange for a pawn with two active bishops.
Yeah, okay, then we don't take on c2, and let's take the pawn on d6 with the knight.
You mean after queen c2,
instead
right?
of trading the queens, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But I think black is doing fine. Let's say takes, and rook c7. I mean, rook d8 or bishop c6. But okay, I mean, knight b5 is a move, right? And it's not like it's blundering a pawn. There's some other pawns under attack as well. But it feels that this bishop on c1 is slightly underdeveloped. The knight on e2 is a bit weird. I don't know. So I would say that knight b5 feels like white is trying to get out of the situation here. And maybe if white has nothing better to do, she could consider knight b5. But can we play something else, some sort of an active move? I just don't know what it is, really.
Knight d4 is another move, so you threat now knight b5.
All right. Now, d5 is not so convincing now, is it? Because after d5 takes, white has already blocked the pawn. And white is not obliged to take on d5.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally like bishop f4 to pin the knight on e5.
And there's the drawback of queen c7, early commitment. Okay.
Oh, we have moves. And
We have something.
this.
b3 played very quickly, and rook d8 responded very quickly. Yeah, of course, b3. b3, bishop b2.
Bishop a3 ideas as well is there when rook was on f8.
Right. So, okay, yeah, actually this makes sense. It looks very similar to one of the theoretical lines that I know, where white tries to limit this knight on e5 and pawns on b3 and h3 so that there's no jumps. Yeah, it definitely is logical. So black still toys with the idea to play d5, just in case protects the pawn on d6. Probably white is not going to manage to play the Marozzi bind with c4. As far as I know, the FIDE rules of chess clearly prohibit jumping the pawn over the knight. That's not legal, not yet anyway. So I think bishop b2 could be a move here.
Yeah. We're going to see this couple more moves in this game, and we're going to have a bit of more clear picture. But meanwhile, in the other game, we have a pawn sacrifice attempt from Kosteniuk, as she just played f5 in the previous move.
We left it here after queen c2, king h8, rook c1. Here Kosteniuk felt that Goryachkina is removing the rook from the king side. That's why there's no choice. She has to do something. f5, take it, take it. And Goryachkina says, I do not believe you. And she just takes the pawn on f5. And now the question is, what has black prepared here? What do you have it?
I'm scared. I don't know.
Is it a rook sacrifice on f5? I don't believe
the knight is hanging on h5. So
yeah.
If you sacrifice, then you have to guard the knight with knight f6, right?
Right, so maybe takes, knight f6, I just go back, and what do you have for the exchange? Nothing. So this is not probably going to happen. The pawn on h7 is also under attack. So what's the idea? Maybe it's just a pawn sacrifice to activate the pieces. Let me try to understand. I'm a bit puzzled, to be honest.
Take on d5.
Yeah, and I take it.
Takes,
and
bishop takes.
And something, maybe this pawn on d5 somehow is under attack.
Like knight h5 back on f6.
Yeah, and I could go here. Oh, come on. I mean, white is just up a pawn, right?
Yeah. Or maybe Artur knight f4 instead.
Not knight f6, but knight f4.
Yeah, knight f4.
Your idea is you want to open this bishop.
That's right.
And I allow you to take on b2. No, I mean, there's no way that black can take over the game here. And bishop b2 actually is a very bad move, because white simply takes it and collects the rook for free. So this is not even a sacrifice. I mean, it's not working. Maybe this is just a desperation for black, because you have to do something. The clock is ticking, and white has a very solid position, but I just don't see the point.
Yeah, also hard for me to understand what is really going on here. Is she going to play maybe knight f4 right away here at this point to keep some pieces on the board?
Yeah, but this comes with no threat, right? I mean, you're not threatening.
The threat is knight e2 and rook to f5.
Yeah, but I can parry it in like a million ways. I can play knight g3. I can play bishop d3, bishop e4. I'm up a pawn.
The pawn is hanging on d5. Like if you play bishop d3 or other moves, I can take on d5, trade the queens, and take on d5.
Right. Okay, what if I play bishop e4?
Yes. That's a bit passive, though.
Yeah, I don't know what you have. I'm going to take on f4. I want to take on c6.
Mm-hmm.
Takes, queen c2, rook c2. What do you have?
Yeah, maybe not too much.
Yeah. Okay. So here Kosteniuk has to make a move, and I'm a bit surprised she's thinking here, because when you play f5, you sacrifice the pawn. There should be like a follow-up. Maybe she's just double checking whatever she calculated, but very quickly I'm a bit puzzled, to be honest.
Me too, really. I'm trying with all my heart to find out what is the idea here with black, but white is so resourceful. How about knight to d7 to f6? To try to trade the bishops. And if you take my bishop on c8, I will take with f rook, and I want to take on d5.
Again, I just play knight c3, right? I keep things under control. Oh, wait, I'll lose a pawn.
Yeah,
knight
I can
e5.
take.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got that. Huh. I mean, it should be some simple move like takes, queen d1, b3 maybe. I mean, white is just healthy up a pawn. My first instinct is that maybe Kosteniuk jumped a bit too early with this f5. But again, we can't blame her because she's in a very difficult situation. She has to win with the black color against one of the strongest female players in the world, maybe already the strongest female player in the world, right? Because Hoyifan is not playing. She's the number in the world. And guess what? Who is number 2? Alexandra Goryachkina, right? The rising chess star. And Goryachkina has been playing the better chess so far in this mini-match because remember, game 1 of the match, Goryachkina had a winning position with black. She outplayed Kosteniuk, but then she messed up in a time trouble. Then was the second game. Again, Goryachkina had a slight advantage in the opening. For Kosteniuk, no real chances to play for the victory. Third game, again, it was Goryachkina who outplayed her opponent with the black color. But this time she scored a victory. And that's why for Kosteniuk, I mean, she needs to do something, but at the moment it's incredibly unlikely that something is going to happen here.
Yeah, interesting what is in her mind now after taking the pawn on, pushing the pawn on f5, where Goryachkina just took the pawn, said thank you for extra pawn here. And so far, for all these moves that looks tempting for black, white has enough response and enough resources to play. And after all, white just needs to make a draw as well. So
yeah, there's that. You're not obliged to win, right? It's enough just to make a draw. And even if nothing happens, even if white doesn't capitalize for Goryachkina, it's like, okay, I mean, so be it. It's a draw, no problem.
But what's a bit interesting for me at this point is that Alexandra played f5, sacrificed this pawn, and now she's taking a little bit time to think. I would expect next move rather fast because obviously she was waiting the bishop f5 to happen. This should be the first candidate move here, right? When you play f5, but somehow she's taking now the time. Do you think maybe she's considering not to play f5 earlier and she might regret a bit?
Maybe she hallucinated something. I mean, this happens. Yeah, here you see the body language for Kosteniuk is not great, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I mean, it says it all, right? She's not happy with the choice. Maybe, probably she already suspected it's going to be very, very tough for her to win today. Now she played f5 with some idea, and once you get it on the board, there's a chance that she realized it's not working. It's simply not working for you. Whatever you intended, it's not working. Maybe there is some e4 pawn sacrifice. e4, knight e5, that's a second pawn right there. White's position is very solid. I don't see any single weakness in White's position. The knight on h5 is odd. The pawn on h7 is under attack. You know, if this was a tournament or a match where was no Sofia rule, sometimes the player get out of the situation, even if they're losing a match, they simply offer a draw, right? Okay, I mean, I don't want to lose a second game, I offer a draw, whatever, I accept a defeat in the match, and let's call it
for
a day.
that, you need to have the equal position at very least, right?
I mean, I've seen even having a bad positions, right? It's a very common thing. I've seen it many times happen, mostly in tie breaks, that you offer a draw, whatever. I want to go out, not with 2 losses in a row. I offer a draw. I know I'm not going to win this game, but here's the thing, you can't do that, right? Because there's a Sofia rule in the FIDE Candidates Women Tournament. You need to make at least 40 moves, and until 40 moves, maybe black is simply not going to survive.
Yep. Wow. Such a dramatic turns of event in this game here, and very likely we're gonna see in the few more moves more clear picture. Is Goryachkina keeping this advantage? Has Kosteniuk created some kind of threats here and some tricks? We're gonna know all of this after the break, guys. Now we're taking our first break today, and we are going to come back with some of the updates, some of the moves, and what's more important, less time on the clock. So when we have such a situation, time scramble on the clock, we have more fun as spectators and the commentators. As you can see now, Kosteniuk plays another move, and she decided to play knight to f6, although she took some time for that move. That she played, which is a little bit suspicious. After pawn sacrifice, you rather want to play next move faster than she played. But anyways, we're going to see all of these actions at the round 4 in the matches right after our break. So guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back soon.
Then, Junji, after drawing the third round of the first match, it was a very intense game. First you were better after the opening, then probably a very difficult endgame. Can you tell us your impressions?
可能在这个马 B3那步棋的时候，就是我长考了很久，但是我确实没有看到他，就是如果我后面车 C7 象 D8 车 B7 象 B6那个棋，确实就是纳洛他找到了很好的防守的手段。我觉得是自己好一点，但是确实临场上没有怎么样。在后面的时候，我忽略了他马 C5 的计划，然后其实一度形势不是很好。然后我觉得他可能在实现的时候 GB1 有点草率，就是他可能 GB2 抓着 B2 G2 兵，不要让王 H4 上去，或者他之前的时候直接先挺进 H5。我感觉我是非常有压力，因为也没有时间了，但是他也没有时间了，他可能也错过了一些机会。
Okay, thank you. Congrats, because I guess you saved a really tough position, and good luck tomorrow.
谢谢。
Welcome back, everyone. This is FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament. Pool B, round 4 is in the progress. Artur and Keti are here with you guys, and we have very interesting situation in the game of Katerina Lachno and Tan Zhongyi. At this point, we have a tie in this match, 1.5 to 1.5, and this game is very important for the match. If they tie again, the game, if they end in a draw, then we're going to have tie breaks tomorrow in this match. If one of the player wins today and gets a result out of it, then she qualifies right away to the second round. And for the moment, we see D5 on the board.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. Of course, the action is heating up, and I did predict that D5 probably is going to happen at some point. I did not predict it's going to happen here. So let's take a few steps back and see how did this happen. We left it after Queen C7, and we're wondering if this D5 idea might happen. Well, White first played B3, Bishop E3, making sure that Knight C4 is not a problem. Bishop E8, F4, start to push back Black's pieces. Knight B5, Queen B8, and C4. And there you go, Keti. We are seeing that here White is trying to set up the notorious Maroczy bind. Why is it notorious? Because at the professional level, the Maroczy bind, pawns E4 and C4 against the pawn on D6, they are extreme. It is a very extremely popular system. So Black immediately, boom, counter strikes in the center with D5, sacrificing a pawn. And this is one of the common themes of the Sicilian openings, where you are supposed to make one of the most dramatic breakthroughs, either B5, either D5, and Tan Zhongyi follows it to the letter.
That is right, and now it's interesting what will be Lachno's reaction. Will she capture on D5 and then push E5 pawn to create the isolated pawn in the center? Is that the move, or she will clear up the center right away with 2 captures on D5? Those are mostly the 2 options. She cannot play E5 right away because I believe D takes D4 is something that gets a very important tempo here. So, Artur, shall we start to understand, first of all, what happens if this pawn on D5 is traded? So, C takes D5, E takes D5, and E takes D5.
I think so, because according to the theory of calculation, you have to check the forcing moves first. And if your opponent sacrifices the pawn on D5, the question is, what do you have it here? And I think the answer is actually pretty obvious. I think Black can simply take it. Knight E5 quite unexpectedly here. And why is this? Because after Bishop D5, there is Bishop takes on A1. And if White is going to capture on A1, the Bishop on D5 is simply undefended. And after Rook D5, even if Black has some dark spot weaknesses at the king side, White's compensation doesn't seem to be enough.
That's right. And also when you push the pawns forward with already on the 3rd rank and the 4th rank, obviously don't want to trade that much of the pieces. So White has here visible weaknesses. C takes D5 has happened. E takes D5 has happened. I personally expect here E5 to be played next move, which creates very interesting pawn chain on the king side and the center. However, it allows Black's knight to jump on E5 actively in the center. And this is very interesting position. E5 by Katerina Lachno. She has 21 minutes at this point. This is move 20. So is there another game we're going to see Katerina Lachno in the time problem situation?
Yeah, this is definitely looking like a potential time trouble, Keti, because Lachno is down to 21 minutes with only 20 moves being played. And this is a very sharp position. And Black is ahead on the clock. Something like half an hour pretty much. And here, this E5 idea, it is a very common response in these positions, because not only White dodges this trick of Knight E5, White wants to establish a great outpost on the E4 for one of the minor pieces. And I think that Knight E4, of course, is a very thematical response, because Black has an outpost on E4, White has an outpost on D4, and go figure who is better. But you know, Keti, I'm looking here at this position. I wonder if there's even something more. And I wonder, Could there be a place for the e4? Probably not, but can we check it for a moment?
That's very interesting challenge here for black. Is there this move? I think just to take on d4 here makes a lot of sense. And white has guarded d4 piece with 3 other pieces. So at this point, after take on d4, you can take with the bishop, I guess. I like it
I don't know with what.
With the bishop.
Maybe with the bishop, maybe with the knight. It's
If you take with the knight, then knight d5 is something a bit annoying, so you have to move the bishop away. But how about just to take with the bishop?
right. That's a very good point. I tried to make somehow work idea the knight h5, expose your king, some knight g3 ideas, spin ideas. All I see that black has very active rooks on d8 and c8. But to be honest, I don't really believe it. I don't really believe this is something going to happen. And since black has this idea of knight e4 here immediately, I'm pretty sure that Tan Zhongyi is going to play it pretty quick.
Yeah, knight e4 should be played here probably. Rather than to give up the pawn. There's also knight h5 I move here, which is very passive, and this knight on h5 seems to be locked and not have much of the perspective. Like white can play knight d4, white can play king to h2, and obviously if we have the choice between knight d4 in the center and knight to h5, we're gonna choose knight to e4.
Can we maybe still shuffle the pieces a little bit with this d4? Because I noticed another idea.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, d4, knight e4. What if I play knight d5? I claimed d5 square, and I did not allow your bishop to land on d4. Is this an idea?
That's very interesting. After knight d5, here bishop f2 is the move I would consider to keep this bishop on the diagonal.
There could be some tricks, some tactical shots, but again, maybe.
One thing, what I see, like to take on d4, bishop takes on d4 and knight e3, but I don't believe that's enough.
And if I take with the knight?
Yeah, that's another option, of course, and safest option.
Right. So black really needs to show what she has for the sacrifice spot. Although all of black's pieces are positioned really well. Okay, we could question about the bishop on g7. It's staring at the pawn on e5. But if there's some sort of a breakthrough possible, maybe black can rip apart white's position, like g5 or f6.
F6
but I don't think she has
nice,
the time.
Yeah. F6, then f5.
But I don't see anything immediately. So I'm sure that here Tan Zhongyi is looking at this d4. Of course, she has made up her mind now that c takes, e5. This is what she expected, because it's one of the common responses to meet such a breakthrough of d5. You establish yourself the outpost on d5. And she's so strong that, of course, she understands the power of sacrificing the pawn. So d4 is something you cannot simply pass lightly. So what is it again? d4, knight e4? I was thinking about some sacrifice ideas on e5. Not enough. I don't think it's enough. Knight e5 is tempting. Knight e4 is tempting. That's why Tan Zhongyi here is not going to rush. She's going to spend at least a couple of minutes and make sure that this sacrifice is not a huge mess.
That's right. So when you want to sacrifice the pawn on d4 and open up the rook on d5, obviously you're counting on that counterplay on the file, and white seems to be very well organized in the center. So far, we don't visibly see what are the weaknesses that black can start to play. So that makes a lot of sense for me that Tan Zhongyi is considering here a couple of more moves, and it's not so easy that you cannot just say like, okay, I need 2 minutes here, and I will then make a move, because all these moves, knight d4 and then d4. D4 is a communal move here. You're sacrificing the pawn. And knight d4 is the move that if you get the bad position, then you will not be able to sacrifice the pawn anymore, because white obviously gonna block that square and the pawn after next move, maybe king h2 or knight d4 right away. So let's take a look now what happens after knight to e4. Is there anything interesting happening?
I'm not sure about the order of the moves, but it's pretty clear that this knight is going to land on d4. So maybe white could start with something like king h2.
To guard the pawn.
Yeah, just in case, to secure this pawn. And again, we could argue if a6 is necessary for black, is it not necessary? But let's assume it is. So a6, guard his pawn on a7, drive away the knight. The knight is going to head to d4. Maybe something like knight b4, right? And black is relying on the piece activity that she has. At the right moment, a well-executed f6 could make all the difference, assuming there's no counterattack with knight e6. So black wants to include his bishop in the game, but of course not at the expense of the king's safety. I would easily see something like rook c1 to be played. And then what? Difficult to tell. Could be b5 even. b5, 8 takes, bishop b5. Who is better, Keti? I don't immediately understand, because I see that white has very good control of the center. Very nice blockade on d4. But also black is having a good knight on e4 and a very active knight on b4.
I think it's a double-edged position here. Both of the players have their own ideas. They have nice pieces. And obviously here, white structure is better. Pawn structure on the king side. However, we should also mention that one inaccuracy here, some moves can create weaknesses, a lot of weaknesses for white structure, like moves like f6 and g5. If you don't prepare against those moves, you can find yourself in a huge mess here with white. Knight e4 now has been chosen by Tan Zhongyi.
Yeah, of course,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And we include the a6 move here with the black, because knight b4 right away cannot be played as a7 pawn is hanging. So if black wants to get this knight on b4 square, which looks very nice outpost, black should start with a6 first. Yeah.
So I think that king h2, a6, knight e4, knight b4, something like this is going to be played. For Lagno, she would love to get this endgame, this position to some sort of an endgame where she has a great knight on d4 against a bad bishop on e8, which was, again, one of the yesterday's most thematic themes in the game of Alexander Kosteniuk against Alexander Goryachkina, where Goryachkina had a great knight against a bad bishop. So here, essentially, for Lagno, the dream scenario could be something like this. I mean, put the knight on d4, make some trades. Let's say black does something here, queen d3. Okay, I'm really fast forwarding here. I just want to show the big point.
To trade push everything,
away, yeah, push away the knight, somewhere queen, and maybe there's some scenario when she's enjoying some pressure against the pawn on d5. You know, you have the better pieces. The bishop on g7 is a bit passive. The bishop on e8 is passive. And then with the combination of pushing for those kingside pawns, she could try to claim something. But there's a problem. I mean, black is not going to play so passively, and black is going to play active instead. So that's why I think here after knight e4, something like knight b4 makes perfect sense, because this is such a juicy outpost for the knight.
Yeah, that's right. We have a question in the chat already twice, so maybe we can answer that. Not to rook c1, which has played here, but the question is why not bishop to e4, which is the giveaway light square bishop for free, and then knight to d6. Yeah, this knight is perfectly placed on d6, but here white will find herself in a huge mess. For instance, after bishop to f8, the question is how you are going to defend the knight. There's also knight e5, f takes e, and bishop e5 ideas. And guys don't give up the bishops that easily.
Yeah, that's actually this knight e5 looks killing, you know? The knight on d6 looks really nice, but even if black plays something like rook c7, the question is this knight really so great? Isn't your king too weak? Yeah. So I have a feeling that Lagnos looked at this maybe for like a minute. Okay, it's interesting. No, I don't want to weaken my king. And very often, the highest level players, they trust their gut instinct. And actually, Keti, we have a major move here. After rook c1, d4 is a move here by Tan Zhongyi. Was this missed by Lagnos?
Whoa, that was blitz out, actually. She didn't thought a second. This is so interesting approach of Tan Zhongyi. She's not really thinking too much here. And d4 is isn't it a very interesting idea? Let's see what happens after knight c4.
All right, knight e4. I'm gonna take it.
And you
I
cannot
guess you
take
have
on
to take
d4 with the knight because the g3 pawn is hanging. If you take with the bishop,
There's some issues for you. Takes, and knight g3.
knight g3.
I mean, probably this is still quite equalish in the end, right? Because white is still having a very solid position. Maybe even the knight goes to e4. This is great.
Bishop
But-
c6, I don't know. These pawns, to me, they might be some targets.
Could be. You know, it's incredibly difficult immediately to jump in and give the assessment. But d4 looks like a great shot. And I think that Tanjaki simply had made up her mind. If the opponent is going to play something as slow as rook c1, she should try to go aggressive in the center because she was already looking at this here. She was looking at d4. She was trying to validate as if it's working or not. Now the knight is no longer under attack. Boom! There you go. She immediately opens this rook here. Easy, piece of cake decision for the Chinese grandmaster. And the only question here, Keti, is if Lagno did not miss this shot.
I think it's easy to miss d4 move. Once your opponent chooses not to play d4, then probably you are not considered to see this move anymore on the board, especially when the knight on e4 is hanging. And in case if bishop takes e4 now, then black can take the dark square bishop on e3. Look at this pawn being on e3. And after knight to d6, we were considering knight e5 earlier in
But this is not the same position, Keti.
Sorry?
It's not the same position because
we were considering
the
these
issue.
kind of ideas. However, I think bishop f8 here makes a lot of sense.
Might be, yeah. So bishop f8. I mean, there's definitely a room for a lot of complications. You know, on top of all things, I see even knight e8. I see even this move. Rook d1, knight f6, king g7, rook d1, rook d7. Probably not, but the game is becoming a true mess. And Lagno is down on the clock. She's down on the clock. Look at the clock. She's having 17 minutes, and they have made only 21 moves. And here Tanjaki is going for the kill. She's not going to allow black to block the pawn on d4, and she wants to create a dynamic mess.
That's interesting. This at this point, Lagno cannot make the next move in 5 minutes. I think she will spend more than 10 minutes, even maybe 15 minutes here at this point, or next point, like maybe she will take knight to d4 right away. But the thing is that Tanjaki is also pressing on the clock with this kind of moves, which is very nice strategy. And you did not really expect it here, this to happen, because seems like white was from the beginning the one who was controlling the whole board, and just because of one move, rook to c1, all this mess started. So we were considering to play knight d4 to block this pawn, or king to h2, very important move, which was guarding the pawn on g3, and to guard this pawn on g3 was one of the key points in this position. So let's go again, like, because after bishop e4 we have not seen so obvious idea for black, right? Knight to d6.
Well, maybe it's actually this bishop f8. Maybe this is perfectly legal. I mean, this idea of sacrificing the queen, it looks interesting, but of course, white could play something more positional like queen d3. Queen d3, takes, rook d6, queen e3, and I guess the position is about balanced. Because black's bishop on e8 is not doing much to exploit white king's slightly weakened position. So I think for Lagno, probably it's a good idea not to burn all the bridges, right? Remember, she played it positionally the entire game. She probably is a small favorite in the tiebreaks, and that's why she wants to control things and not to get in a huge mess in a time trouble. And she takes knight b to d4.
That is right, knight to d4 now. And black has to take on d4. There's no other option to play. Maybe Tanjaki will play this move right away. And let's once again take a look at the main lines here.
Yeah,
Rook
so...
to c8, probably.
No, rook c8. Oh, wait, there's also rook c8.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there's rook c8.
So after rook to c8, then black has to take the knight on e2 with a check. Queen takes c2 and
Yeah,
take on c8 with the queen or with the rook? Oh, with the queen. Yeah.
Maybe this is just balanced, and then actually maybe even white is even stronger because the bishops on e4 and e3 are so good. So we are going to see it in a second. Knight x on d4 is played. It is on the board. Pardon us that we are not following for the moment of the game of Goryachkina against Kosteniuk. We are going to turn in a moment, but there is a major development here in the other match of Lagno against Tanjanki. We want to figure out how this mess is going to finish. Probably white didn't blunder anything dramatic, and it should be somehow okay for her.
No, I think what white blundered here, and it's a bit unpleasant for Lagno, is the chance to evaluate the position and clear up the board. She goes with rook to c8 here right away, so 92 seems to be the next move that's gonna be played by Tanjanki, because if you take the rook on c8, white will simply take on d4 with a bishop.
Maybe, wait, but you dropped the queen, no? Queen c8, bishop e4 is knight f3 check.
No, queen, bishop d4.
Bishop takes on d4.
Yeah.
Is there no tactics here? I mean, I do see a lot of pins.
Yeah, it's a very valid question, yeah. There can be something because of the pin.
Yeah,
At least there's bishop c6 here, which now looks quite okay to me.
Yeah, but you're not creating the threats, right? So bishop c6 is a bit slow move. If black indeed wants to go for this position, there needs to be like a one shot immediately, because white could play queen a1 or remove the queen e1, and that's it, your threats are gone. The knight on e4 is now under attack. So what was it once again? Knight e4, rook c8 is on the board, and we're looking at queen c8 or rook c8. So rook c8 is probably not good, right? Rook c8, we play queen d4.
Yeah, and it's a double attack. Knight e4, pawn on a7.
Right. So probably it's got to be knight x on e2 check, queen e2. Do I have knight x on g3 here? Look at that.
Wow.
Is this a move?
Wait, what's going on? Can I take the queen? You take my queen, king f2. Takes. No, it's an equal position.
Yeah, it's an equal position. Maybe this is going to fizzle out to some sort of equality like this. So, again, how did we get here? Rook takes on c8. I think knight e2 has to be played. Queen takes on e2. Queen c8 actually looks like a playable move. But queen c8, bishop e4, queen h3, queen g2, I think white is simply better because of the better bishops. And that leaves this very tricky move, intermezzo, knight x on g3. Again, tactics, dear viewers, tactics are very, very important for you to master. The queen on e2 is under attack for the check, so I'm not sure if rook b8 has to be played, or maybe white can start with something like queen f3 first, queen c8, queen g3. No, I think black is simply doing all right here.
Rook d3 is something that you don't want to see here with white.
So by the looks, it looks indeed that after knight g3, rook b8, knight e2, king f2, rook b8, king e2, we are going to reach an equal position. And actually, this means that the tie breaks might be still on, but there's a lot of fire. And maybe here, both players are going to find something more exciting.
Yeah, this endgame itself is also very interesting, because you might feel that something for white, because white has more advantage here, space advantage, active pieces. Black has this pawn on a7 hanging, pawn on b7, being under attack, and black might seem a little bit more active, more passive. But I think it's possible to guard here in this position, and with the accurate moves, to me it seems that black has nothing to worry at all.
Right, and she also has 37 minutes on the clock, and that's why the good approach here would be invest some time. This is a critical moment, although she did already calculate it before. She saw something, she has to make sure she's not going to miss a very critical continuation here. So usually, Keti, when I enter such a position, I have the so-called, I call it myself, quite a funny name, minimal program. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? I have a minimal continuation in my mind. I have already made up my mind. I'm going to at least have knight e2, knight g3. But once we enter this position, now I start to search for more. Maybe I missed something. Now I have fresher eyes. I'm closer to the final position. And I try to make sure I did not miss anything. But I think that Tan Zhongqi already sees this idea of knight e2, knight g3. She's just making sure there's no other hidden tactics here.
That's right. And Artur, while we have a fire on the board in this game, Kosteniuk goes all in her game. Let's get back very quickly in that position and see the final move of Kosteniuk, who decided to capture the pawn on d5.
We left it after this slightly dubious pawn sacrifice. Maybe she really had no choice and she felt that this pawn has to go. Otherwise, her position is cramped. Queen d2. I think we're looking at d takes on c6, queen c6, queen d1, and all due respect, I see no compensation here for black because white is simply having a better pawn structure. Anyway, after bishop c8, rook f8, queen d2 was played. And look at these active moves by Kosteniuk. Rook b3, activating the rook. Knight c3, queen b7, attacking the pawn on b2, attacking the pawn on d5. Another great move. Rook c2, c takes, knight e5. Kosteniuk wins back the pawn.
That's right. It's interesting that she wins the pawn back. However, white is still not worse at all. And white has very good pawn structure. And shall we have here the follow-up? What happens? There is, first of all, check on the back rank with queen to c8. That comes to my mind. However, black covers the check with the queen to g8. And the question is, can I take this queen and take the pawn on a6 because I want to make a draw? Is that enough for me to make a draw?
Right. In the meantime, we are seeing the other game. Knight e2 was played. I'm pretty sure that knight j3 is about to follow. So Tan Zhongqi didn't find anything else. So everything is in order in that game. Let's check this one. You said queen g8, Keti?
That's right. Queen to g8. And
now this bishop is under attack.
Bishop c1 to guard the pawn on b2. So a6 pawn is hanging.
But this is giving some chances for Kosteniuk because I could drop this pawn. I could play d5, rook a6, d4. I have a passed pawn. This pawn is blocked. Maybe there are some chances. I don't believe they're great, but there's something. And it's unbelievable how Kosteniuk has managed at least get something going. So she's not risking to lose this game. Probably it doesn't really matter if she loses or draws. She loses the match.
Yeah, that's right. Another interesting move is knight to c3 here, as the rook is guarded by the queen. We can now attack the queen on d5.
Right. I'm slightly surprised to see another choice by Tan Zhongqi. This is the line we discarded. We see it on the screen. She did went not for knight g3, but knight e4, queen h3, which was the first idea which I noticed. But I had a feeling those bishops on e4, e3, they're strong. We're going to get back to that in a moment.
Right.
So, what do we play here if we are Alexander Goryachkina?
I think knight c3 is a very nice move here. Knight c3.
There's also queen f5 idea at some point, right?
Oof, nice.
So let's say you play queen b7, you protect your rook. I guess you have to. I play queen f5. No? Here and here.
I dislike this knight on h5 so much. Maybe it's fine to be there. But yeah, bishop g5 is something that looks very tempting here. So knight is under attack, and how black is going to play. I think queen b6 makes a lot of sense to kick this king in the corner and to look for some kind of tricks.
Maybe d5, I just take on f6. Probably not very good. I'm just looking for some dynamic chances for Kosteniuk. And so far, she's doing great. I mean, maybe the position itself is not great, but she managed to get a fighting position.
Yeah, that's right.
This entire pawn sacrifice, I mean, it was dubious. Maybe the position was simply bad. And I have a feeling that Goryachkina responded a bit too safe. She could have played more stronger, but still her position feels to be perfectly under control after queen d5. So once again, knight c3, attacking this rook. Queen b7. Queen to5 makes perfect sense. Attacking the knight. What about knight f4?
There is... I can take this knight and take the pawn on f4. I think that's enough to make a draw. Is not it enough?
Maybe rook e1.
Even without taking on f4?
I just want to go for some activity. And this could be a forced draw. Like takes. Queen g7 is perpetual. That's a perpetual as far as I know. And after queen e5, king g8, I don't think white is... No, I don't know. I mean, is white not risking to lose? I wanted to say white is not risking to lose, but I don't see perpetual here, to be honest. You can lose this.
Wait. There was a queen e8 move instead of knight e7.
I missed something, yeah? Queen e8
Queen e8,
here?
king g7, queen e5.
Are you sure this is a perpetual? Because I'm not.
No, not at all.
I'm not. Yeah, that's the point. I'm not.
And now check from f6, king e8 probably. That's scary. I see checkmate, Artur. I
Where is
see
the
checkmate. So queen e5 check, king d8. Yeah, king d7, queen e7, king c8, and queen e8, checkmate.
Yes, but I'm not going to do it.
I don't see after that.
I'm not going to do it. Yeah, the problem is I'm going to go here, escape. No, this is not obvious at all. So maybe even knight f4 could be an option. But again, I mean, obviously, after bishop e5, I don't have to sack place. What was this? Knight c3, queen b7, queen f5, knight
Hold
f4.
on, Artur. Is Goryachkina just blundered another pawn? Rook to d1. So if I take on b2, queen takes b2, queen takes d1.
Wow, rook takes some b2. Is this an option for Kosteniuk?
And if you take the queen on d5, then I take queen on c2 with a tempo, because the knight on e2 is hanging, so you can take the pawn on d6 right away.
No,
or you
can actually. Actually, I can.
You can make everything work. That's the problem.
There's this move as well. Whoops. Checkmate. Almost. Okay, I mean, knight f6, the defense from the checkmate, but black is definitely
That's a very
not winning.
poor position.
Maybe it's not even a blunder. Just a second. Rook d1, rook b2, knight e5, here, rook d6. Now, knight is under attack. So, rook e2 is bad. Maybe bishop f8. No, it's actually good for white. It's just all right. King f1. This is not a blunder as far as I see. This is not a blunder. But yeah, rook b2 can be easily missed in very similar positions.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And what happens after rook b2, queen to b2 in that case? Rook b2,
Then
queen to...
black just wins a pawn, no?
And king f2?
Some move like queen d5 or knight f6 or I don't know. Yeah, rook b2
is on the board. Yeah.
No, this is going to fizzle out to a draw. I see there's no chance for Kosteniuk to get a fight because rook d1 is a great move. It's also threatening rook d6. So I think that Goryachkina simply found a way to liquidate this into a draw. That's what this is all about. Black needs to guard his pawn on b3, and there's rook d6 threat, and black cannot guard a rook on b3 and rook on d6 in one go. So rook bt simply is a necessity. I don't believe for 1 second that Goryachkina blundered this. This is intentional.
Right.
So
yeah, maybe this is the best way to eliminate all the pieces off from the board and go to the equal position. Because from after rook to b2 here, obviously white has not much of the options, and she will not keep the queens on the board and take the queen takes b2. Because yeah, black has this pawn, but black's pawn structures are also a little bit loose. There is a back rank problem. So let's take a look once again. What is Goryachkina's idea? So she wants to take the queen on d5, rook takes c2, and takes on d6.
Right, and once again, rook e2 is rook d8 check at bishop h6. Not very good for black. Maybe there's some tricks like... No, knight f4 is not a trick. Rook d8 check is a big check. So the pawn on a6 also is under attack at some point. Bishop f8, maybe.
Actually, our chat suggest a very interesting idea here for white at the starting position, which you have currently. Queen to c8 check. You're forced to play queen g8 and then queen to a6 to get the pawn and guard the knight on e2.
Yeah, that is also right. But again, remember, Goryachkina is trying to liquidate. She doesn't want to fight. She's not in a must-win situation. So she simply takes on d5. The match situation is she simply needs to make a draw. Rook d5, this was not a blunder. She intended to do this. Rook d5, rook d6. She just made sure there's no tricks. And I'm fairly sure that also Kosteniuk understands that she did her best, try to get the fighting position. She probably had a very bad position at some point. But in the end, at the end of the day, this is probably heading to a draw.
Yeah, seems like that. So very solid play from Goryachkina. She had many chances here to get way better position, but the way she's playing, it is incredible. And I had this feeling at the very beginning when she played Queen C2 on move 15 that she could get way better position than that, but she did not risk. And this is very tough for Kosteniuk when your opponent is so solid. She's not even fighting for any complication to get the advantage, but instead she goes really like slow moves, which keeps the edge on the board. That makes Kosteniuk's task really, really hard. So king to g8 has happened. And now at this point, knight on e2 is hanging. White can play king to f1, which makes a lot of sense here to me, or white can...
g3 is also good.
Play
King
rook to
f1 is
d2.
good. Maybe king f1 is just more solid because this knight h5 is not doing a thing. But again, for Goryachkina, draw is good. So knight g3 forced to trade. The pawn on a6 is under attack. I guess takes, rook a6. I could give you... maybe I'm not even going to give you checks. I'm going to cut off your king, put the rook on a7 here. Maybe there's some scenarios where a black would activate his a pawn, bishop f8, a3, but even something like bishop c5. No, I mean, there's no chance that black is going to win this.
Yeah, but what happens if I stuck with the checks like rook a8, rook a7, rook a6, and how can you improve that?
Okay, maybe here, yeah?
Yeah.
Here. Check, here, check, here. Yeah, probably there's just some perpetual check already.
Check. If you play king f5, rook a7, and... Oh, that's even a checkmate.
Yeah, that's a checkmate on the board. Yeah, even these checks. I mean, no. This is. I think that knight g3 is very logical. King f1, there's nothing wrong with the move, but
you
knight
keep
g3,
more pieces on the board, yeah.
Yeah, you keep more pieces, exactly. So knight g3 just forces things, and after knight g3, knight f4, of course, you can make sure there's no tricks. You could even take it and play knight h5, attack this bishop, give check on the a, d7. The pawn on a6 falls, and with that, all the hopes for black. So here, Goryachkina is simply making sure that she has the draw in the pocket, that she is holding the position easily together, and then she's going to play knight g3.
Yeah, again, this advantage she grabs in this position, that she's not messing it up, and we have to shout out to Goryachkina for all these 4 games that she's playing so solid, which is very important when you play knockout system, right, Artur? Because you definitely don't give the chances to your opponent.
Yeah, so this is why they are really the best players in the world. So it's not only about making good moves, you also try to limit your opponent's any active counter chances. So that being said, king f1, very normal move, nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, you keep too many pieces on the board. Maybe you're going to miss a fork at some point. And already since rook d1, maybe even earlier, maybe even the entire sequence by Goryachkina was meant that she simply gave up the pawn on d5 for a reason. So this was not the strongest move, but she gives up the pawn on d5 for a reason so that she can liquidate into a draw.
Right. It's also possible. Yeah. Here's the thing. I believe it more that she intentionally sacrifice or blunder these pawns, d5 and b2. I believe in that more than I believe that she blundered it.
Yeah, that is very unlikely scenario.
Yeah, I don't really believe that she can blunder these moves that they're so obvious. I think it was well planned traps.
Yeah. So this is how you control things. That's what she is. Number 2 in the world. Very good chance again for her to make it to the next stage, where she would have to play the winner of the match of Katerina Lagno against Tan Zhangqi. But let's not jump ourselves ahead of the events and maybe use this opportunity to go back to the game of Katerina Lagno against Tan Zhangqi.
Which we have to do. Look at this position. Actually, they kept the queens on the board and swapped up the rooks, which was something that we have not considered it yet.
Tiebreaks look very likely at the moment. We left it, knight e2, queen e2, and I really loved knight g3. I really loved it. Maybe there was something wrong with the plan why Tan Zhangqi decided not to go there. Queen c8, queen h3 instead. Bishop f2. Okay, I was thinking about queen g2. Maybe no big difference, really. b6, black protects the queen side pawn.
But Artur, she's very tricky. You know what she wants with this? After bishop f2, she wants to play bishop g2 next move to kick this queen and then take a7 pawn.
Okay. So she decided to keep the queens on the board. All right. Now they traded the rooks. Queen goes back, and black is simply going to trade some pieces at some point. This is looking quite equalish. White has the better bishops at the moment, but black has no weaknesses. And once these queenside pawns, they're traded, it's 3 pawns versus 3 at the kingside, and black could play bishop d7, h5, bishop e6. So I don't see any real progress by other players. So only thing that which can change the outcome of this game from a draw is a major blunder.
That's right. Let's take a look also time of Katerina now. She has 12 minutes on the clock and 12 more moves to be played. And the position is not so tense anymore. There are not so many pins and not so many variations to be calculated. So I don't feel like Katerina will find herself in a time scramble.
No, I mean, this is still very solid position. She was a bit down on the clock at some point. But now the position is rather equal. She's trying to figure out a couple of things. First, how to get to these weaknesses. Obviously, it involves some kind of a5 push. Second, what to do against black's intended bishop d7, bishop e6. So you have sort of a weakness here on b3. Maybe she's thinking, perhaps I should try to make a draw here, move to the tiebreaks. Or she's thinking, do I still have some chances to play this tournament? Because I have at the moment slightly better bishops. What should I do?
I think white will try to go ahead a bit rather than to concentrate on the tiebreaks tomorrow, because after all, there is still some space advantage for white. And maybe move like queen to c2 to go right away to the bishop endgame makes some sense here, with idea b4 a5 to create some weakness there, if that's anything, and to play a little bit more and let opponent make the moves. Queen c2.
She played it.
Yeah, it's on the board.
Queen c8. So white still has some space advantage. Maybe it's an attempt to try to squeeze something out of this. I'm not sure if actually black has to trade the queens. Maybe black could just as well decline, because she's ahead on the clock, and trading queens would benefit slightly white to survive the time trouble, if it even is a time trouble. But I could easily even see queen d8 to be played as well. And the position could repeat queen d8, queen d3, queen c8, queen c2.
No problem. No problem at all here to have this kind of repetition. It hurts no one, and we're going to have a tie breaks in that case tomorrow. And that's a lot of excitement indeed. But to me, this body gesture, what we have here, tells me that she's going to take the queen on c2 and go to that endgame.
There's a good chance.
Yeah, she's
Absolutely.
just looking to that side of the board. Queen c2 is there and calculating what is happening.
You already analyzed the look of the Dungeon Keys side. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she would decline the trade. To go for the repetition. It's not like she is going for a fight, but maybe she could estimate that white has some space advantage here. The king could run faster, perhaps, to the center, although...
Like bishop c5, c6 here, bishop d5, f6 ideas is out there for her.
This should
Very
be
least.
perfectly all right.
Yeah.
A5 maybe. Not sure if you need to rush with this. Take it, bishop f8, king f2. You know, maybe white is faster. And the king is more active. And that's why she's not going to rush with this decision. Because this king runs faster to the center than the black king. And king is also a piece in an endgame.
Oh, it's the strongest piece in the endgame.
Right. So maybe if black is very busy trying to secure things here, the king said, look at this, how things can go very quickly bad for white. So this pawn on a5 could become a target. Think about putting the bishop on d5. White can easily dominate this endgame. And that's why for Tanjaki, this is not a very obvious decision. I would maybe keep the queens on the board.
Yeah, queen d8
Just to be
makes more
sure.
sense to me.
Just to be sure.
And also the fact that white wants to trade the queen here tells a lot, because your opponent feels better in the endgame. So why to give that satisfaction and trade the queens and not to play queen d8 here?
And also black's idea is to get the bishops out. Bishop f8, bishop d7, bishop e6. If the queens are on the board, white cannot activate the king on the march to the center of the board. I guess that would be risky. Mm-hmm. And she's just maybe making sure if there's no drawbacks of queen d8, if white can't get to this a5.
Yeah, and now she's looking at her side of the board, so I think queen d8 is the move she's looking at. So why not to see both of it? She has half an hour for the game. Lachno has 8 minutes, and also when you have queens on the board, you have a little bit more chances to get some complication, unless Lachno plays queen d3. However,
she traded it.
She traded the queens on c2 and went to the end game, where I feel like Lachno has risk-free position.
Yeah, so this trade favors white, but probably doesn't dramatically change the outcome. Maybe there could be even f6. Maybe that's the idea. I mean, pushing f6. Try to liquidate into even more equalish endgame, because after f6, can white play e6? That's an open question. But why complicate the game so much? I don't know. So is this pawn a strength or is it a weakness? Go figure, right? So king f8, king e7. If the pawn drops, white is simply down a pawn. Maybe that's her intention to play f6, because after f6, if white takes it, then okay, these bishops are in the game. The black king is also running very fast to the center, and there's not much to be seen.
Artur, can we check move bishop c6 now with the same idea what you just showed? Bishop c6, a5 here, and now to take this pawn on a5. Oh, she goes f6.
She goes f6, and now moment of truth. Can Lagno play e6? Can she do this? I don't think she's going to do this. I mean, this is too important moment. She's down on the clock, 8 minutes. The slightest miscalculation means she's going to lose this pawn. Yeah, she accepts it. Yeah, the trade, of course. So maybe there's nothing wrong with e6, but you're afraid to make this decision with so little time on the clock. I mean, 8 minutes... One shot missed, you're losing the endgame, you lose the match.
That's right. That's actually right. That this is not only one game, and if you get a little bit worse, it can cost you whole tournament. So it takes f6 is kind of like agree on the draw. So you don't keep the pawn on e6 on the 7th rank with some ideas g4, f5, but instead go in for the exchange. And now at this point, after a5. Black has enough time to guard the pawns on the queen side.
Right, and there you see the tiebreak regulations below you. So in case this match of Lagno against Anjanki finishes in a draw, it's going to take us to the tiebreaks tomorrow. And then we are going to explain you all the subtleties of the tiebreaks, who is the favorite, who is not the favorite, etc. But at the moment, it looks like both players have made up their mind that there's not going to be any action here. Not that the game was boring. They have finished all games so far in a draw, and also this game is getting to a draw. Still, very exciting game so far.
Yeah, we cannot say that none of these games were equal from the beginning. Even today, we had some of the excited moments from Tonjongi when she decided to give up the central pawn on d4, and that's for sure very interesting ideas. And before that, we also had the typical idea in this kind of positions with a d5 breakthrough. So a lot of learning classes here at this tournament for our viewers. I'm sure they are getting a lot of ideas out of it. And itself, the tournament is so tense, so many things on the table, and a knockout system is something that keeps the players to be too creative and too risky. Shall we go back to the game of Goryachkina and Kosteniuk?
Yeah, let's do that. And instead
check
of
out
this,
what's happening.
Yeah, and instead of knight g3 here, here Goryachkina went for king f1. So this is really showing some strength that she believes her position is so good that there's no need to force things. Now she plays g4, drive away the knight, plays knight g3, and I guess she's ready to play knight f5, g5, and white is simply having the more active pieces here.
I would not be surprised if she's going to play here for a win. Like, let's see after g5 what happens. Knight is quite limited, right? You can play knight e8. I think that's the most decent move here. Mm-hmm. And after this, you can give a check. Rook to d7. King e6, for instance, and rook to d8.
Oh, rook e8. Okay.
Yeah, if you repeat the moves, it's a draw. If you play king to knight to d6.
Yeah, I wanted to play knight e6, but maybe
rook
it's
g. No. Take on d6 and knight f5 is something there.
Yeah, but do you want to go there? I don't know.
Maybe
I would be feeling pretty nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. This pawn is too fast and white pieces are not very well coordinated.
Right, and the king is cut off as well. The pawn on h2, by the way, is also under attack. So black is not risking here, I think, only white.
Unnecessary,
nice
unnecessary complication. Indeed.
Nice trick. So yeah, g5 is, by the way, played. Pushes away the knight. An awkward square. Most likely knight e8. Knight g8 is just too passive. Knight e8 is played. Yeah, of course I don't want to question Goryachkina's approach. I do believe that knight g3 was simpler, but perhaps Goryachkina is a perfectionist. Despite the fact that draw is still good for her,
she wants to win.
She wants to win, yeah, play some good chess, and maybe it's some extra rating points also, right? It's never occurs to you to grab some 4 points.
And also just imagine that you win the match so convincingly with two points. That's something very, very interesting. Also, to boost your confidence, and it is her who was talking about the confidence, right? And after yesterday's game, she feels now more confident.
I think her plan is to play rook b6, knight f5, h4, h5. I think I understand
she goes rook b6 right now.
Yeah, now h4, h5. Oh, this is a great plan, actually. Check this out. How do you deal with this? No, there's no chance that Kosteniuk is going to win this.
And Artur, if you take the pawn on h2, that's funny because I might play bishop f2 there and the rook is kind of locked up. Besides the fact the pawn on a6 is hanging.
Yeah, the pawn on a6 is trapped. Rook h4 is jumping under some tactical tricks of discovered attack. Bishop f2 is looking really nasty. Let's say I play here.
Yeah, very least you can take the pawn on a6 here. To be sure that nothing gonna happen, but you can also play something like 94. I don't see some immediate
shots. I'm sorry?
94 maybe?
Yeah.
Or give a check first. And king g2, king e2, something like that?
Absolutely. I mean, white has no risk here. I think we can agree on this. And Goryachkina just shows really power demonstration that she is not defying any rules of chess. She still plays the active moves. And if she is going to make a draw, maybe it's also part of psychology. She's going to do it from the position of strength, not from the position who is asking for a draw.
That's right.
Wonderful performance so far. Yeah, I like it. I mean, you could show this to people. I mean, how do you control things when you have to? When you play with the white color, you're playing solid, but you're not blatantly play for the draw. If you want to show an example, show Goryachkina's game with white. But again, we have to give all the shout out there is for Kosteniuk, but because she's trying, right? She managed to complicate matters. She managed to, with the help of sacrificing the pawn, get some game, but her opponent is so strong, so precise that she's simply not giving her any chances.
Yeah, I agree with that. That she had quite tough a few games earlier. And the other game has been ended. I assume that's a draw. Shall we take a look? What was the last position?
Yeah, they managed to trade off the pawns at the queen side very quickly. B4, A5, takes. This is simply mutual understanding. Let's just take on the fight to tomorrow's tiebreaks. And it's official. We are going to have tiebreaks tomorrow. And by the looks of it, only one match. Katerina Lagno, Tanjanki, the match score so far is 2 points each. And this means accelerated time control games and a lot of excitement tomorrow.
That is right. And another game in this match ended after the 40 moves. So they are following the rule that we have here. This is a Sofia move. I would ask them to keep a moment and wait for a moment. Probably they are checking how many moves they have played, and that's possible to check it in the digital boards. It's actually pairings for tomorrow. It's actually pairings for tomorrow.
So, yeah, I think according to the regulations, immediately after the last game of the classical section, if the match is a draw, they have to select the color. And there you go. You see that arbiter is explaining the rules and probably the color they're going to play.
Yeah, Katerina Lachner was asked to, and now we can see our cameraman is shooting that. So very likely we're going to have this tomorrow in our highlights. I believe Katerina chose the black pieces. The black pawn was on the right hand, but that's not official information. That's just what I see right now from the screen. We're gonna know that information right after some minutes. I think it will be official information, but there was a bit of ceremony right now after the end of the game.
I think that here Kosteniuk is actually very close to lose this game, because after Rook b6, she had to take the pawn on h2. She did not do this. She is continuing to fight. And now after this very annoying check on b7, how do you play here? Because bishop e7 drops a piece with knight f5. King g6 runs into a potential checkmate with h5. The king is positioned so badly, and white can always force perpetual check with rook b7, rook b6. And if you finally play king g8, this king is stuck from the game. White can even repeat the position if she wants, but I would even start to play this position for the win. Think about moves like knight h5, knight f6, or maybe h4, h5, knight e4, knight f6. I wouldn't be surprised if Goryachkina is going to win this, Keti.
Yeah, I would not be surprised that she keeps playing, because it's really tempting position for her. There is a clear idea here. Why not to play several more moves? That's too natural. We just got the confirmed information from our team that Tan Zhangyi will be with white pieces in the first round in the tiebreaks, and Lachner Katarina will be with black pieces.
All right. So I think it's going to start the usual time tomorrow, and when the game is going to finish, we are going to once again bring up the entire schedule of the festival. H4, this has got to be the move by Goryachkina here, because she feels she's got this. The game is completely under her control. Despite the fact she's down to 9 minutes, the position is rather peaceful. She could, of course, try to play rook b8, but why do this? She does it, actually.
She's going for that.
Maybe
That's
this is a
ticket to the next round.
okay. That's an invitation to a draw. So Goryachkina is not going to press it for the win. I think she could have played h4.
I also
Because-
like 94 there, but oh no, that's gonna be end of the tournament for Kosteniuk, as she is just repeating. However, she's saving some of her ratings after this draw.
And there you go. There's going to be a truffled reputation. The players have made up their mind. Of course, Goryachkina can continue to play for the win because she has the better pieces here. She has chances to organize a very strong pass pawn at the king side. And this is where the black king is, but she's not going to do it. She has already made up her mind. Now she's checking the score sheet.
She's writing down the move and she stops the clock and she calls the arbiter. That's, guys, how you should ask for a threefold repetition.
Exactly. And we also have a confirmation about tomorrow's tie breaks. It's going to be 4 rapid games first, 15 minutes plus 10 seconds between Tan Zhongyi against Katerina Lagno. Tan Zhongyi, as already Keti said, is going to start with the white color. And each player is going to get 2 rapid games and 2 chances with the white color, try to secure the victory. But here we are seeing the waiting of the arbiter. The arbiter has to come.
Is Kosteniuk's hand in the air? Is she ready to handshake? Yeah, she was actually ready to handshake, as it was for sure 3 times repetition, but arbiter has to check it on digital board. And this is official. This is official information that Goryachkina Alexandra wins the match against Alexandra Kosteniuk, and she goes to the second round, where she will face the winner of the tie breaks of Tan Zhongyi and Katerina Lagno.
Absolutely exciting day it was. And Kosteniuk definitely did what she could. It is a very tough situation, so she went out fighting. And also for Goryachkina, this means she managed to make some revenge for losing against Kosteniuk in the World Cup final of 2021, which allowed Kosteniuk to achieve one of her greatest career achievements, beside, of course, the World Championship title back in 2008. So Goryachkina advances and is going to use tomorrow's day as a rest and prepare against potential opponent. Is going to be either Tan Zhongyi or Katerina Lagno.
That's right, and she's going to have actually 2 days off, as then the other day is a rest day. Here we have the table of the tournament. In the first round, we had 4 games, and we can see that it was only Goryachkina who scored here. The other games has been ended in a draw, and this is enough for Goryachkina to go to the second round. Once again, Tan Zhongyi and Katerina Lagno, we still don't know who gonna win the tie breaks. They cannot make any more draws now. It should be decisive result there. And soon we're gonna know who will be 2 players fighting in the second round, Artur.
Well, from us, I think that's it. So the coverage is about to finish. So also, I would like to, from my part, thank everybody who was watching this. Thank you for positive feedback. Hope you are enjoying this so far. And just be back tomorrow. So I do believe we could also show the official schedule of the commentary, because usually it starts every single day at the same time, which is what?
3 p.m. local
11
time.
a.m. Central European time, I do believe, if you're from Europe.
If you're from Europe, that's 11 a.m. Central European time. Artur joins us at her afternoon time, that's 12 p.m. And you guys are from around the world, and you already know the place you are watching the commentaries, and you already know the time. But guys, make sure that you are here on time, because this is the tie breaks, and we have way shortened day of the chess, 15 minutes plus 10 seconds and 4 games. So you don't want to miss any single action. Thank you so much, guys, on YouTube chat and also on Twitch chat. And big thanks to our broadcast team and Artur. Thanks very much for the insights and all the comments that you are making for these games. And guys, this is our final goodbye, and see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.